This chapter is brought to you by the unstoppable force known as Ro. Big ups, massive thanks, and all the love to Ro, the legend fueling this adventure. If you're reading this, throw a cheer in the air for Ro. Chapter 1, Blockify Pickaxe. Damn it. Where am I? It's so dark, but I recognize this smell. I am underground, Ben said with a grunt. He then tried to remember what had happened last time. He had just returned from a bar after talking with his best friend, Bob. He had then had some fun with an escort, but afterward, the memory was quite fuzzy. Did I get kidnapped? I should have listened to Bob and started giving them larger tips. With that thought, Ben called out, "Hello? Anyone here? I swear I will give you more money, just let me out." His voice echoed, but no one answered. Ben tried to walk in one direction, pointing his hand forward. Now, he started feeling fear. The place wasn't just completely dark, it was also devoid of any noise. A cold and rough texture. Is this a cave? Ben tapped the wall a few times to confirm his speculation, but soon he found something strange. The place he was in seemed to be natural rock, but it was completely flat. Is this whole place a complete cube? Ben wondered as he walked around the area. Eh? He raised his eyebrow as he felt the texture change. This time, the wall felt like it had some kind of hole in it. As he moved his palm around, he discovered the hole was shaped exactly like his hand. A green light then shone brightly, allowing Ben to see the whole room. As he expected, it was a complete square. The room itself wasn't that big, around 5 meters in width and 5 meters in height, 16.4 feet in width and 16.4 feet in height. Congratulations, you have been chosen as a crafter. You get 1 Blockify pickaxe, you get 1 crude dimensional pocket. What is this? Is this like the system I often read about in those novels? Reading novels and playing games were among Ben's favorite hobbies, so he didn't find this kind of system strange. Let me see. Crude dimensional pocket, type, storage item, rarity, common, upgradable, capacity, can store up to 10 items, durability, infinite, ability, dimensional access, effect, provides a small, rudimentary pocket dimension accessible only by the user, retrieval, allows the user to retrieve stored items instantly in any environment, even while under physical or magical restraints, limitations, cannot store living beings, magical artifacts, or liquids without risking damage to the item. Instability, 5% chance items stored may temporarily misplace themselves, reappearing randomly within 24 hours. Tooltip, a crude pocket dimension, convenient, but a bit unpredictable. Blockify pickaxe, type, tool, rarity, divine, growth, durability, infinite, damage, 10, melee, ability, send you flying, knockback, 4, weak, critical strike chance, 4%, Blockify, power, 1, limitations, cannot be used on living beings, equipment, or liquids. Tooltip, a strange power lies within, turning nearly anything into blocks, but not without a cost. A dimensional pocket and a pickaxe. Interesting. Ben then checked his inventory. In there, it showed a few slots, one of which was filled with an icon of a bag. If this is like the games I used to play, that means I can equip multiple inventory items. Based on what I can see, I have 3 slots for now. Let's see what is inside this dimensional pocket. There were 10 slots, each of them empty. Ben then tried to call out the pickaxe. The next moment, a crude pickaxe appeared in his grasp. It had a rusty iron head, while its body was made of wood. By now, all his fear had disappeared, replaced only by curiosity and excitement. The pickaxe felt like an extension of his hand, and the weight was barely noticeable. As someone experienced in construction work, he also gets projects to build mines. It wasn't the first time he had held a pickaxe, and he knew this one wasn't normal. Usually, they were far heavier than this one. With a grin, Ben then swung the pickaxe. Bam. The wall cracked. He then did another swing. Bam. Bam. Ding. You get 1 stone block. The wall where he had hit turned hollow. What surprised him was that the cavity was exactly in cube form, like it had been cut using a machine with insane precision. The size is exactly 1 meter in width and 1 meter in height. At this point, Ben understood how it worked. The Blockify ability allowed him to turn anything into a block, just like in one of his favorite games. Each object had its own health, and based on the pickaxe's damage, the rock should have around 21 to 30 horsepower. There was also another stat he needed to mind, power 1. This meant there would be materials that he couldn't damage, no matter what he did. The next question was how he would upgrade it. Usually, this could be done using a specific crafting station, but right now, Ben couldn't do any crafting. There should be a trigger for me to unlock a recipe. Curious, Ben continued smashing the wall. He did it methodically, making the cubicle room bigger. Ding. You get 1 stone block. Ding. You get 1 stone block. I've gathered more than 100, but why hasn't the crafting shown up? Ben wiped the sweat covering his head. By now, the room had returned to pitch darkness. 123 stone blocks and 1 bronze ore, that's what he had gotten after toiling for who knows how many hours. His throat was parched, but there was no water to relieve his thirst. Inventory. 123 stone block, type, block, usage, crafting material, building material, understanding, 1.23%, max stack, 9,999, rarity, common, origin, naturally occurring underground, in caverns, or in the dirt layer, a bronze ore, type, material, usage, crafting material, understanding, 0.1%, max stack, 999, rarity, common, an abundant metal with many uses. Understanding? Right now, I have 123 stone blocks. Does this mean every 100 blocks raise 1%? Ben then laid himself on the ground. He took a deep breath, then started cursing. Fuck. Who sent me here? Did you just want to kill me? No water, and I need to farm 1,000 stones minimum to raise my understanding? And what the fuck does that even give me? I should be at home, eating something warm, maybe a nice stew. But nope. I'm here slaving away in a hole without any pay, living the dream. Whoever sent me here, may you $% at $%. 1,001 curse words came out of Ben's mouth, but unfortunately, none were effective, as the one who had sent him here came from a higher dimension. One where their words and imagination created a new reality. After a full course of cursing, Ben took a deep breath, then stood up once again. Now that is relieving. At least here, I can curse out loud as much as I want. It wasn't the first time Ben had compared himself to a slave. Even back in the real world, he often compared himself with one. How could he not? Overworked, his pay barely covered the bills, with a mountain of debt he needed to pay, all thanks to stupid policies and the elites. The only relief he could get was escaping into novels on his phone or playing some video games. He barely had friends, and his romantic relief came only from hiring escorts. That was the pitiful life Ben had before being sent here. Well, at least now I can do whatever I want. Let's do this. Chapter 2, The Six-Legged Syndicate Pick strikes stone. Deep in the night, chips fly off, swallowed from sight. Ben hummed in the dark to focus on his task. He started expanding the room downward, lowering it by a step each time, making it like stairs. Thunk, clink, crack, the cavern hums, he rhythmically struck as he continued. Ding. You got 1 stone block, ding. You got 1 stone block, digger digs deep. The treasure comes. Dust to stone, and stone to ore, ding. You got 1 red gemstone. A red gemstone, type, gem, usage, crafting material, enchantment material, max stack, 999, rarity, rare, origin, found deep underground, often embedded in volcanic rock or near high-energy magical sites, effect, known for its durability and ability to enhance fire-based enchantments, tooltip, fire inside a stone. Curious, Ben took out the item from his inventory. A warm red crystal cluster appeared in his hand. It gave off a sense of warmth and a crimson hue. It's good enough for a light, but damn, this makes me want to smoke. Ben tied it to his waist, using it like a lantern. He used a rubber band from his pocket as a makeshift rope. Thankfully, Ben had some in his pocket just in case, but he regretted not having more stuff like his cigarette, lighter, and flashlight. Usually, he had them with him all the time, but considering he fell asleep drunk, he probably removed them beforehand. If only I remembered what happened. Usually, even though blurry, Ben had some memory of what happened, but now it was completely blank. With a sigh, he started humming the song again. Now, he changed his strategy from expanding the room to creating a small tunnel. He dug 1 block with a height of 3 blocks. The words high-energy magical sites in the description intrigued him. Magic. Who doesn't want to have it? Ben often thought after reading a novel, if only I had this ability. How could the Mac be so dumb and not use it like this or that? The number of times he hoped to have something like telekinesis, hearing what others think, or becoming a necromancer was countless. With telekinesis, he could easily lift all those heavy materials without worry, same with necromancer abilities, that would mean free labor. Never tired, 100% loyal workers, and more importantly, never complaining and not needing to be paid. A true slave. Now, if only he could get those, he could make them work for him, expanding the space to create a comfortable home. This was Ben's first goal, a decent base. Bam. Bam. Ding. You got 1 stone block, ding. You got 1 stone block, ding. You got 1 stone block, congratulations, you have completely understood stone block, crafting feature has been unlocked, you can now craft items with stone as material, the limit is your own imagination. The notification appeared when Ben made another swing. Bam. Crack. Normally, it would only show another wall of rock, but now it revealed an opening to a big area. Ben's eyes widened at what he saw, his hair standing on end with a sense of danger. But this was not the most shocking part. Inside the room was a round table with 5 creatures gathered together. 4 were ants that stood on their 2 legs, reminding Ben of similar creatures in a comic he had read. The last one was clearly the leader. Her lower body was that of an ant, while her upper body was human. She wore a black blazer, a modern piece of clothing that Ben was very familiar with. Her long, purplish hair fell all the way down her back. The room itself looked like a meeting place. The walls were carved with many beautiful murals, and the floor was decently tiled. The hell? Warning, you are entering the territory of the 6-legged cartels. The woman's eyes glinted dangerously as she looked at Ben, pointing her finger and screaming in a weird language. Ben didn't even think twice. He did the best thing he could do in this situation. His eyes filled with determination, and his heart beat like a drum, pumping blood and tensing his muscles. Ba-dum, ba-dum. Ben unleashed the secret technique that he had polished hundreds of times since childhood. Run. He dashed, returning to the place he had come in. Fucking system. Should have told me before I broke that last bit. But what the hell is a 6-legged cartel? Enter appearance. Unfortunately, Ben didn't have time to think about it. Death was coming at him, and it was close, very close. He could hear the sound of the tunnel being forcefully widened by the ants. Ben had tried touching the stone with his bare hand, so he knew how strong it was. If not for his magical pickaxe, there was no way he could destroy it. By modern standards, Ben would say it was as hard as sapphire. These ants' strength is no joke. I'll turn into mincemeat the moment I get caught. Ben raised his pace, but the longer he ran, the more he realized the sound was getting closer. What can I do? There should be something. Ben looked around the place, but everywhere was just stone and more stone. The ceiling, the walls, the floor, all of it was stone. Stone. Stone everywhere. Wait. A realization came to Ben. Didn't he have 1001 stone blocks in his inventory? Leaving behind the narrow tunnel, Ben walked up a few steps and looked toward the exit. Ben decided to take a gamble. It's not like he had any other choice. Boom. The tunnel exit exploded. The once completely square exit now became a mess, dust, and shrapnel flying all around as the monstrous ant emerged. Now that he saw it up close, Ben realized how big they were. They were the size of an elephant. Their jaws clanked menacingly, their sharp edges glinting in red. God, Buddha, or whatever deity up there, this is the first time I pray, please make this work. Ben pointed his palm forward, opened his inventory, and took out the stone block. It appeared directly on top of the ants, and gravity did its work. Bam. Damn it. The sound was loud, like metal clashing against metal, but there was no damage to the ant. It barely left a dent. The ant then utilized the moment Ben was surprised and leaped forward, its sharp jaw inches away from his face. Ben took out another stone, shoving it into the ant's mouth, then rolled to the side. The jaws closed, smashing the stone into many pieces. One of them shot out, hitting Ben right in the cheek. It scraped part of his skin, a hot, searing pain hitting his nerves. Ben had felt pain before, but none like this. Fear gripped his heart, and panic quickly set in. He was not some kind of cold-blooded killer. Ben was just an average construction worker. It was already a miracle that he could run after seeing such a monster and try to fight back, but now that it failed, the terror overwhelmed him. Ben gulped as he looked, seeing 3 more ants coming out. Chapter 3, Dead? Is this it? The end of my life? The ant made another attack. This time, it used its strong legs. Ben raised his hand instinctively. Bam. He was sent flying, crashing into the wall. Ben could feel a few of his ribs were broken. The same could be said for his hand. He barely could feel it. The ant started crawling. Despite its size, its movement was very fast. Ben's eyes turned bloodshot. No. I will not die here. He opened his inventory using his thumb, then started dropping the stone blocks, creating a wall. This slowed down the ant's movement, but not enough. The other 3 ants also made their move. Ben started spamming the stone blocks, creating a wall surrounding him. He made a few layers with 1 block gap so he could still see the ants. The next thing was a constant cycle of dropping a block as the ants kept destroying it. There must be a way, come on, my brain. This ant's shell is too hard. Even the stone blocks aren't enough to destroy it. Should I try the bronze ore? That should be heavier and harder than normal stone. So far, Ben only had 18 blocks of bronze ore. He couldn't spam it like rocks. He looked at the ant, then targeted its legs. Even though the ore was still unprocessed, it was heavier and harder than stone. The green ore fell down, crushing the ant's leg. Growl. The ant screeched in pain. Yes. It's working. A single ant had 6 legs. He was now facing 4 ants. Ben took out 15 blocks of ore, dropping it on top of the ants' legs. He targeted their front and back legs. He didn't stop there. On top of the copper ore blocks, Ben also added a few more stone blocks to make them heavier. Ahahaha. Take that, you damned insect. Who told you to try to kill me? Ben laughed hysterically. It was thanks to the ant being hellbent on attacking him that allowed Ben to drop the blocks directly on top of them. Otherwise, they would have been too fast for him to target. The result of his attack made the 4 ants spin to the ground. They tried to stand, but the weight was too much to bear with just 2 legs. Ben dropped to his knees, his heart beat loudly like a drum. He wanted to rest, but he knew this wasn't the time yet. Things were still far from over. The woman ant he had seen was probably the queen. After beating her royal guard, she should have sent her ant army after me. This is not the time to dilly-dally. Ben's eyes glinted with coldness as he looked at the ants. He spawned his last metal ore on the 3 ants right above their heads. Bam. Splurt. The ground shook as the ants' heads burst into minced meat. You have killed the ants' royal guard. You have killed the ants' royal guard. You have killed the ants' royal guard. Many notifications filled his view, but unfortunately, Ben didn't have time to check them. The rock wall that protected him was smashed to smithereens. His body was pulled by invisible energy. The next thing he knew, he was grasped by the neck by the ant queen. The queen said something in an angry tone, but Ben didn't understand any of it. What are you saying? If you want to eat me, I'll tell you, I smoke a lot. My meat is toxic and poisonous to your body. Not only that, my meat is hard for you to chew. The ant queen's eyes looked at him with contempt. She tried to communicate a few more times, but it was pointless. Argh. Ben could feel the grasp on his neck tighten, making it impossible to breathe. His head started getting dizzy, and his vision turned blurry. Ben forcefully used his hand to hit the ant queen, but it didn't do any damage. He then took out the blockify pickaxe. The ant queen's eyes lit up the moment she saw this item. She tried to take the pickaxe from Ben's hand, but weirdly, even with her strength, she failed to pry it open. Ben didn't do anything. In fact, he tried to release it from his grasp, as he didn't want to anger the queen further. But he failed. It was like his hand was glued to the pickaxe. Now that he thought about it, Ben had never released his grasp from the pickaxe. Every time he finished, he just willed it to return to his inventory. What should I do now? Release more stone blocks? #@. The ant queen seemed to get angrier as Ben didn't release the tool. Then, in a fit of anger, the queen tore his arm away. A guttural scream reverberated in the chamber. Searing hot, pain spread through his nerves. Fuck. Shit. You bitchy ant, yes. Ben's body was then thrown to the ground. He rolled toward the only royal ant still alive. But Ben didn't realize this. He was busy cursing, and overwhelmed by the pain, he didn't get how he could still be conscious. The queen's eyes were glued to the pickaxe, her gaze like a person dying of thirst who finally found an oasis. Ben's body kept rolling until he stopped right in front of the ant. He was still cursing in pain while the ant's jaw cut into his neck. Ben didn't even feel it, he just saw the whole world turning upside down. But suddenly, everything turned to slow motion. The pain he felt disappeared. His mind returned to clarity. Danger. The host will die. One-time intervention from plot armor will be used. Looking for the best method to help host in a way that makes sense. Method found, utilizing biomass in host's inventory. Doing this will alter the host's species. Will host agree? Yes or no, the button appeared in front of Ben. The hell? You still ask? Do you think I have a choice? If I don't do this, I'll die. Ben didn't even care what he would turn into next. He just wanted to survive. In the past, he often thought about how good it would be to just die. Living seemed pointless and had no meaning. But this was nothing more than an afterthought, one that appeared because he just wanted to complain about how unfair the world was. Deep in his heart, he knew he wanted to live. Ben always kept his parents' teachings deep in his heart. Remember, Ben, being alive is the greatest strength you can have in this world. As long as you're breathing, the possibilities are endless. Drowning in debt? Who's to say tomorrow won't bring a life-changing windfall? Battling illness? It's only a matter of time before new treatments emerge. So don't give up, Ben. You already hold the greatest power there is, and with great power comes the responsibility to keep fighting. No matter how tough life gets, hold on, you never know what tomorrow might bring. Yes, Father, I will never give up. Ben shouted in his mind as he chose yes. Acknowledged, consuming the biomass. Chapter 4, Elvira of Etheris race. A weird sensation started filling Ben's mind. From his neck, purplish flesh came out, it started forming and turning humanoid. This change pulled the Ant Queen's attention. She raised her finger, and a fireball then appeared in the air. It started as an ember but quickly grew in size until it was as big as a football. With a flick, the fireball streaked through the air. It then exploded with a loud boom. But the Ant Queen didn't feel happy at all. Her eyes were filled with a frown as her lips mumbled something. The smoke dissipated, showing a transparent barrier. She created a few more fireballs and tried to attack again, but it was futile. Ben's new body had already begun to take shape. It was humanoid, looking just like a normal body but covered in purplish chitin armor. That is how it looked on the outside, but inside, Ben could feel it. A surge of strength, something he didn't have before. Right now, he felt that even if he were crushed by a truck, he would survive. His single punch should be at least as strong as the royal ant's jaw. Ben looked toward the Ant Queen, his lips curling into a grin. Bam! As he fell, he stomped the ant's head, squeezing it like tofu. You have killed the ant's royal guard. You get 25 units of biomass. There were a few more notifications, but Ben ignored them all. His focus now was on the Ant Queen. The magical barrier dissipated the moment he finished his transformation. Just what are you? Ah, now I can understand you. It seems absorbing the biomass had this effect. The Queen was surprised by Ben's response. Before, she couldn't make sense of what he was talking about, but now she could understand all of it. This moment was not missed by Ben. He stomped on the ground, then appeared in front of the Queen. Bam! His fist dug through her flesh, tearing through her skin. The Queen retaliated, her hand engulfed by fire as it grasped Ben's hand. She then raised her other palm to his head. Ben could feel scorching heat gathering inches away from his face, but he wasn't worried. With a will, the chitin armor started creeping upward, covering his whole face and turning into a helmet. The flame exploded point blank. Ben could feel the pain, but this was nothing compared to what he had felt before. He kicked the Queen's head while performing a backflip, then landed on the ground. It seems taking those martial arts classes wasn't pointless. Ben pointed his finger forward, then dropped a dozen rock cubes. His goal was to impede her from casting another spell. He then leaped forward, landing on the Queen Ant's body. Stop. Let's talk. But Ben didn't listen. Talk now? Fuck you. He knew that before, they couldn't communicate, but it didn't change the fact the woman had just tried to kill him. There was no way he could talk with her just like that. At the very least, he needed to return the favor. He pointed his arm like a spear, then pierced through her back. His target was the woman's heart. He didn't know how it worked for her body, but since her upper body was humanoid, Ben thought the location should be the same. Crimson blood splurted out, and the ant's body fell as she grimaced in pain. Then, what followed was silence. The Ant Queen didn't make a single move or a sound. Is she dead? Ben was puzzled. The ant didn't seem to move, nor did he feel any life coming from it, but there was no notification. As he was puzzled, suddenly, the woman's hand moved in an unnatural way, hugging him and pressing his body forward. It was like they were hugging, but he was pressed against her back. Then, in horror, her head turned 360 degrees. She may have been beautiful, but given the circumstances, Ben didn't enjoy looking at her face at all. He tried to break free, but her grasp was too strong. Stop fighting, and we can talk. I never wanted to kill you, but since we couldn't communicate, I had no choice. Bullshit, you could have just ignored me. No can do. In that case, someone else would have taken you. You're a human, the creator species that should be extinct. Extinct? Human? It seems you have no understanding of this world, so the book is true. Her words made Ben feel even more confused. He knew he needed information, but he couldn't help feeling danger in the situation. Prove it then. If you really just want to talk, release me. Why can't you trust me? It's clear you need something from me, and as you said, I need more information about this world. The Ant Queen still hesitated. They locked gazes, but Ben didn't relent. With a resigned sigh, she said, My name is Elvira, and I am not really an ant. She closed her eyes. The next moment, she opened them, and one of her eyes glowed red. I am Etheris, a species where each individual is born with a unique ability. My ability allows me to take over someone's body, then slowly assimilate their abilities. Her words made Ben become more alert. What do you mean? Are you planning to take over my body? But after he asked, he realized that if that was her goal, she wouldn't tell him. She would also not try to kill him. Instead, she would have just taken over his body. I can't. There are many limitations to my ability. One of them is that I can only try to take over those of the same gender. Secondly, the creature must be weaker than me. Ben frowned. But you still haven't released me. Who knows if this is just a lie? Maybe your ability requires me to accept it with a word, or you need me to trust you. It seems he'll never trust me. As expected from a human. The legend does say they are very cautious, even with their own race. Fine, I'll release you, but I'll tell you this, even if you kill me, sooner or later, you will be targeted by the others. And they won't be as welcoming as me. Ben's lips twitched. What welcome, you bitch? You tore my arm and cut my head off. If this is a welcome, what will the others do? Thankfully, this time, Ben's anger had reduced a bit. Making a hole through the woman gave him a sense of relief. Elvira then released her grasp. Ben quickly kicked backward, using the momentum to stay away. He landed close to the pickaxe. Ben wanted to grab it again, but just when this thought formed in his mind, the pickaxe disappeared, leaving only his hand. Elvira's head returned to normal. Can we talk now? There are many things I need to hear. Fine, let's talk, but try something suspicious, and you'll know the consequences. Ben said with cold eyes, while continuing the last part in his mind, I'll escape. Ben knew now that fighting this woman wasn't easy. Even with his current strength, killing her would be hard. He also need to check through the notifications and learn more about his new body. Chapter 5, Regressor. Without undoing his armor, Ben sat on the ground with one hand over his knee. His eyes looked coldly at Elvira. First, I am sure you are confused. After all, you are one of them. Those we call travelers. So I am not the only one? Yes, in fact, there is a method to call this traveler, like a summoning ritual. The species will be randomized, and each will have its own ability or special artifact. For example, in your case, it should be that pickaxe. Is that why she looked at the artifact that closely? Can you take this from me? Yes, but it's not that simple. To get an artifact from a traveler, someone will need to kill the user and gain recognition of the artifact. Ben's killing intent rose. Elvira raised both hands in surrender. Look, if I wanted to do that, I wouldn't talk like this. Cooperation based on trust is what I need the most now. And it's not like taking another artifact doesn't come without any repercussions. They will get a curse. A curse? Well, it's not like it matters to me. But if she is not lying, that greedy look in her eyes before was not for the artifact? Then why she tore my arm trying to take the pickaxe? She is still hiding something. Before, you said something about humans, the creator species that went extinct. Does this mean no human traveler has been summoned so far? They do, but it's very rare. As for the creator species, it's stated in many legends of my clan. All of the species and knowledge that exist today were created by humans, but some incidents happened that turned them extinct. As for the cause, it's not clear. Some say it's a natural disaster, others say it's an invader. I also hear some describe it as God's punishment and civil war. So, no conclusive reason. It's also possible that the reason is a mix of them. As for my desire, I am actually in the line of succession for the throne of my clan. I need your help to take it. When the clan comes under me, since I am loyal to you, this also means they will come under your control. That is not interesting to me at all. I don't have any wish to become a leader. This was what Ben wanted to say, but he didn't, since somehow his heart felt hot hearing about it. A power to become the leader, an ambition to be the king. It was something he never had, he just wanted to live his life peacefully. Is this an after effect of changing my race? This question puzzled Ben. Unfortunately, he hasn't had time to check this yet. Let's say I support you. How sure are you to win? Elvira's gaze turned complicated, she hesitated for a moment. You may think I am crazy, but there is a reason I am sure I can win as long as you agree to support me. She then flicked her finger. A crack began appearing on her lower body, followed by a bright light. The next moment, Elvira landed on the ground, her body completely humanoid. She walked slowly toward Ben and then sat in front of him. May I know your name? Just call me Ben. You still haven't answered my question. Despite the change, Ben didn't make any move. So she can transform. This means she was not fighting with all her skills before. Was it just to test me then? Elvira looked at Ben with a serious expression. I know the future. You mean you have some kind of prophecy skill? Then tell me, what is my future? I am sorry, but I cannot read yours since you don't exist in the future I have seen. Ha ha ha. Are you joking, Elvira? If I don't have any future, why would you want to cooperate with me? You even go as far as offering your loyalty. That doesn't make sense. Ben started thinking of the possibilities, but he didn't get it. The more he thought about what happened, if Elvira could see the future, the battle would not have proceeded like that. It was the same with their discussion now, but it didn't look like she was lying either. If she is not lying, and what she says is really the truth. Did you regress to the past? If it was before, even after coming to this world, he would have thought regression was something impossible. It was basically time travel, but now he felt it was not far-fetched. Yes. How many times have you regressed? 2 times, This is the third and also my last chance. She hesitated. Does this mean she has more chances, but she just doesn't want to tell me about it? But this confirms her regression chance is limited. Elvira then began to tell her situation. Based on her story, in this area existed a relic that could give her an edge over her competitors. Unfortunately, she got ambushed and was almost murdered. That was how she ended up possessing the Ant Queen. If you regressed, why would you do something that changes things a lot? Wouldn't it work better if you bide your time and gather strength while trying to minimize change? I tried that on my first regression and failed. As for my second, this relic was the cause of my defeat. Honestly, I never thought she would suddenly come out with that relic. Elvira then proceeded to tell how she defeated one of her competitors and then banished her to this area. It turned out that in this world, everyone lived underground. No one knew what happened on the surface area, but based on legend, it was completely uninhabitable. And those who tried to look for it never returned. The underground itself was separated into a few layers and areas, the best one being located near the surface while they were now deep underground. This confused Ben, as underground should usually have better and rarer materials. But the circumstances were different here. Although there were many stronger materials, the technology to process them had been lost. This made it pointless to gather rare materials. In contrast, near the surface, many ancient ruins were located. They were filled with ancient relics and technology. Of course, using them required a lot of effort and many trials. This is why each clan would secure a good ancient ruin and then establish their territory there. The more relics and technology they could hoard, the higher the clan's standing was. What kind of relic are you looking for? We don't know the real name, but we call the relic a combat suit. It greatly enhances the user's ability, allowing even the weakest soldier to fight like a elite. A combat suit? What is that, a power armor or a robot? Ben had his suspicions, but now he finally understood Elvira's desire. So that's why you want my cooperation so much. Since I can easily dig a hole through the hard rock in this place. But can't your royal guards do the same thing? At this depth, yes. We are still on layer 8. As for the relic, based on my knowledge, it's found on layer 9. This world didn't use metrics to calculate depth. Instead, the closer to the planet's core, the higher the layer number was. This method was created by a traveler who had dug all the way to the point they couldn't go deeper, as the rock became too hard, and the heat was also unbearable. This spot then addressed as Layer 10 Chapter 6, Soulbound, Ding. You have established Soulbound with Etheris race, Elvira Serafina Valora, Soulbound when one of you die the other will die. Ding. You have gained control over six-legged cartels, kingdom function unlocked. It had been 3 days since his meeting with Elvira. He was now in the room where he first saw Elvira meeting with the 4 royal guards. Utilizing his new crafting skill, Ben modified it into his personal room and workshop. To his surprise, the craft didn't work like in a game, where he needed to get a recipe and then gather enough material to craft it. Instead, he needed to imagine what he wanted to make in his brain and ensure he had enough material for it. For example, one stone cube had 1 cubic meter of volume. He could utilize all this without wasting any resources. The only caveat was that he needed to use mana to create the item. For example, a single creation of a sharp sword would cost him 50 mana, while he only had 250. To completely regenerate, he needed to rest for a whole day. To think I spent all my mana fixing this place. Ben then took out his kingdom interface. For an ant kingdom, the stats were very bad. Based on what Elvira had told him, they had just finished a territorial war with another ant kingdom. The reason was to capture their queen. Despite taking over the queen's ability, Elvira couldn't spawn ant eggs. She was more like a parasite, absorbing nutrients and abilities. Hence, she needed to find another queen to fill the role. Fighting without the ability to replenish her forces had resulted in many losses. 6-legged cartels, forces, queen, 0, princess, 0, drones, 0, knight, 0, soldier, 4, worker, 25. The queen's role was clear, laying eggs to create new ants. The princess was a queen candidate, acting as a replacement or used to create a new colony. Drones were male ants that existed only to breed and clean up after the queen. The knight was the one Ben had killed, a special ant that existed to protect the queen. This arrangement doesn't look good at all. I will need to implement more changes. Ben thought the process wasn't very effective. It would be better if the queen was replaced by a real breeding machine, where workers just needed to put biomass in. 50 biomass, type, material, usage, evolution fuel material, crafting material, understanding, 5.60%, max stack, 9,999, rarity, uncommon, a malleable organic substance absorbed from defeated creatures. Can be used to enhance physical attributes or craft organic-based things. suitable for merging with living tissue for transformations. With this, Ben should be able to create the thing he had in mind. It's even better if I can make a new type of army. Ben then remembered the notification he had received after the transformation. Ding. Recovery completed. In the process, host has evolved from human to Hive Sovereign. Unfortunately, there wasn't much information on Hive Sovereign, but he somehow suspected he should have the ability of Hive Mind. A skill that allowed him to control all his creations using biomass. My beloved, I have gathered all you asked. Elvira opened the door, entering with a smile. Ben's lips twitched. Becoming a Hive Sovereign may have altered his personality, but this didn't make him a forgiving person. I told you, don't call me that. Do you think I forgot? You literally tore my arm and tried to kill me a few days ago. Hee, come on, it's all in the past, and it's arm not like you died. I already told you the reason, asked for forgiveness, and even did the oath. Yeah, you say that, but you were the one forcing it. Remembering what had happened made Ben annoyed. Honestly, if not for how they had met, he might have been attracted to Elvira's current appearance. Her personality was also to his taste, but she was too sly. Hi, you cannot be like that. You are the only one who took my virginity in my 3 lives, so be responsible, Elvira said in a half-teasing, half-shy tone. Ben let out a heavy sigh. Forget it. I don't want to have this debate again. The virginity Elvira meant wasn't even the same as in his dictionary. It was an oath done by the Etheris clan when they got married. They would bite their lips until blood seeped out, then kiss their mate. This had happened after Ben had let down his guard and removed his mask. In his defense, he had only done this after he was sure Elvira no longer posed a threat to his life. As a Hive Sovereign, his regeneration was off the charts. As long as part of his body survived, he would be able to completely regenerate. This would consume biomass, but it could be said that as long as he had it, he was almost immortal. But this didn't mean he could go at things recklessly. He still had many weaknesses. For example, fire damage was fatal to his body. If it hit his armor, it was fine, but if it reached his flesh, the damage would be catastrophic. Ben stood up and walked to exit the room. Elvira let out a chuckle and held his hand. Come on, stop sulking, my beloved. You know I can tell if you feel like that. You should be happy. In total, I have gathered a lot of corpses. This should be more than enough for you to master the biomass. They walked through a large hallway with many curves and traps. We still need to look for the queen. Did you find her? Not yet, but one of the soldiers reported they had found her tracks. Ben paused in his step, looking at Elvira. Why, my beloved? Is something on my face? Never mind. Ben wondered how Elvira could talk with the ants. Did she gain his hive mind ability? But then he remembered Elvira had absorbed the ant queen's ability. It should include the hive mind, otherwise, how could she have controlled them all this time? They then reached a room that had been allocated as a warehouse. Right now, the kingdom had multiple rooms. The queen's chamber, the place where Ben stayed and turned into his personal room. A rest area for worker and soldier ants to rest. A warehouse to store food and materials. And a trash chamber where they dumped all their trash. Looking at the rows of ant corpses stacked on top of each other, Ben's eyes lit up. Alright, I will start my work now. Chapter 7, Creature Creation System, ding. You get a biomass, ding. You get a biomass. Unfortunately, since they were just normal ants and not the ones he had killed himself, a single corpse only equaled 1 biomass. Watching from the side, Elvira smiled. I knew it. My decision was right. With him at my side, taking over the throne won't be a problem. After that, I can finally take revenge on them. But just where did he go in my past life? I doubt he just died. Did he transform into another being? When near death, Ben had transformed into a hive sovereign. It was a species Elvira had never heard of in all her life. Since he could transform into this, it was very possible he could also change into other species depending on the situation. The lower we go, the stronger the species we meet will be, but they will have lesser minds. They will act just like beasts. Did he meet up with them? But other than those, there are also the explorers. Explorers were those who tried to go deeper. The reasons varied, but most were to escape the control of the strong kingdom above. They were either a pioneer or a criminal. But both is still dangerous. Meanwhile, Ben was now sitting on the floor, his lips curling into a smile. The corpses around him had all turned into biomass, leaving the place completely clean. Ding. You got 1.125 units of biomass, ding. Mastered biomass material, creature creation system unlocked. A new screen then popped up in front of his eyes, showing many options. Let me see, base creature form. I have 2 options, humanoid and insectoid. On the side of the options, there were 3 numbers with 3 icons, and as an experienced gamer, Ben quickly understood them. The first represented base complexity, the next one was mana, and the last one was biomass. As he thought about the complexity, an explanation popped up in his mind. The complexity of a creature represents how intricate and advanced its design is. Higher complexity results in increased costs for mana and biomass, as more energy and resources are required to bring the creature to life. Ben chose humanoid since he thought they would be more adaptable and useful. Even though the insect form, like an ant, had its benefits, they couldn't use any tools or weapons. A new window then popped up, giving size options. Tiny, small, medium, large, huge. Tiny is the size of a rat, while small is as big as a dog. Medium is the size of a human. For now, I will just use human. Ben could instinctively tell the size was based on animals from his world. After choosing the size, he then got the option to customize their physical features. The base form came with 2 humanoid hands and legs, 2 eyes, and normal skin. Ben started seeing the options. Based on what he saw so far, he only had choices from human and ant species. I wonder how I can get more part selections. Do I need to grind for parts? Like it could read his mind, the system popped up a new message. New parts will be acquired if you use the skill consumed. Please check your skill list. With a thought, a new screen popped up. Skill, Hive Mind Consume Regenerative Brood Chitinous Shield Metamorphosis. Consume eat a target to restore a small amount of stamina and health. There is a chance to learn and incorporate parts of their body for future transformations and creations. If the target resists, the skill fails and stuns you for 3 seconds, so this is how I get more parts. Interesting. Ben also checked out his other skills. Hive Mind allowed him not only to communicate with others, but he could also take direct control of their bodies. Regenerative Brood basically consisted of regeneration using biomass. Chitinous Shield was the skill he used to cover his body with chitin armor. Ben wondered if he got this skill because the biomass he used to transform came from the ant. If it was true, this meant he would be able to get more skills in the future. As for the last one, Metamorphosis, it allowed him to transform his body into the body parts he had gathered. The creation function was more limited than crafting. As for the last one, he could just use his imagination, while the first was not. I wonder if this is because of my previous occupation. As a builder, I also had a lot of knowledge as a handyman, which included making my own tools and gear. Ben then put his focus back on the screen. Extra limbs, arms, legs, +1 complexity, +10 mana, +10 biomass. Claws +1 complexity, +5 mana, +5 biomass. Exoskeleton, chitin, ant jaw, antenna, compound eyes. Since he didn't know the total price, Ben decided to make the strongest creature he could for now. He put an ant jaw to give his creation more options to attack. Their hands were turned into claws, 3 long fingers, and a thumb. Ben then gave them 2 extra arms. The moment he did this, the body's waist and legs turned bulkier. So the system automatically corrects the creation to make sure it can function. Finished with the physical features, Ben continued. The next option gave him the choice of abilities, but there was only one option, Royal Ant Strength. This gave innate strength to the creature, allowing them to lift things 20 times their body weight. The information made Ben reconsider his choice. If he made the ant as large as an elephant or even bigger, their strength would grow 20 times. The innate abilities were like a cheat. But it didn't come cheaply. The tooltip explained that the cost would rise depending on the size of the creature. Tiny would raise the cost by 25%, while small would raise it by 50%. Since he was using medium size, the cost was already a 75% increase modifier for mana and biomass. If he turned it into a huge one, it would cost an extra 125%. And there were also more cons he needed to think about. With small size came agility, but having a body that huge in an underground place like this had too many cons. Just like the royal ant he had killed, they easily got trapped because of their body size despite their speed. If they had a humanoid-sized body, Ben could already imagine he would be dead now. Clicking the window, an option came up, asking Ben to decide on the creature's intelligence. This time, it only had 3 options: animal, human, and genius. The default was human, which didn't change complexity or mana cost. Unlike other options, this one didn't impact biomass. For genius, it cost him a plus 20% mana modifier, while animal would give a minus modifier, which basically reduced the overall cost by 20%. Let's choose a human for now. If they become too smart and rebel, that will be a problem. Despite having hive mind, Ben didn't know if this ability was truly perfect or if it had any kind of loophole. Who knew if some kind of genius could think of this and find a way to escape his control? This would become a big problem for him. Chapter 8, Not Enough, Calculating. Please wait while we make adjustments. Another screen then popped up, allowing Ben to modify the color and appearance. He could change the proportions if he wanted, like making one hand bulkier than the other. But Ben only changed the color to jet black. Processing. Making final adjustments and calculating the final cost. The hell, why is it taking so long? Ben complained, saying that the interface had been intuitive and fast so far. It seemed the system also had something it was bad at, like, for example, math. What's taking so long? Ben frowned, then only now realized Elvira was sitting in front of him, patiently waiting for him to finish. Creature creation system. I can make my own species under me. Elvira's eyes lit up. For real? Tell me in detail. With hive mind and this ability, they could make their own army. Ben didn't hide the information. Even though it was forced, both of them were now in the same boat. The more she heard, the more excited Elvira became. Forget that power armor. My beloved, we should just hunt down creatures and raise our own army. As long as we have enough time, we will be invincible with this ability. Me. Not we. And who knows what kind of limitations it has? I doubt it's that easy to gain new body parts. Ding. Calculation completed. Sorry for the long wait. Many adjustments need to be made. Final cost, creature complexity 11, mana cost 367.5 rounded up to 400. Biomass costs 275.6, rounded up to 300. System is not good at math, so please don't blame the system for the rounded up numbers. Please give your creature a new name. At the moment, host can only save 3 creatures, and each design cannot be removed. My beloved, don't be like that. What is mine is yours, and so does the reverse. Both of us are one now. Elvira moved closer, tightly hugging Ben. But he ignored her right now. The system message made him feel annoyed. What the hell is this roundup? This is a scam. The difference is a few dozen points, but this means that for every 10 or so creatures, he will lose 1. Does this system hear what I think? Ding. System cannot hear your thoughts, just think of it as paying tax, Sir Ben. Ben's lips twitched, but he was sure the last one was a voice. Taxes? Damn it, everywhere is taxes, even a system asks me to pay tax. He wanted to continue cursing despite his personality change. Tax was something that triggered his deep grievance. He still remembered how, in his last world, everything was taxed. His income barely paid the bills and was still taxed, eating was taxed, buying items taxed, cigarettes taxed, and even his medical bills had a tax on them. But now, what mattered was the voice. System, you can speak? Unfortunately, no matter how many times he tried, the system didn't say any more words. What is wrong? Ben looked at Elvira, confused. How could you tell I am annoyed? We are bound in soul, of course I could tell. Hearing her flirty tone, Ben thought she wasn't serious. This was probably related to some of her abilities as Etheris race, her unique skill. Nothing much, rather than that, I finished creating my creature. I just need to name it now. Do you have any idea? Ben had thought of some names, but so far, each one would make the copyright gods angry. Like for example, one that starts with Z. Can you tell me what kind of creature you made? Ben used his crafting ability to create a figure out of rock. He made almost 100 of them, making Elvira's eyes widen. Why so many? She asked while studying the figure carefully. Ben himself was surprised with the result. It was very detailed, even better than his imagination. Creating 1 or 2 still consumed 1 stone block, might as well make a lot. You know, with this, we can do a statue selling business. I am sure we could get rich easily, hee hee. Stop joking, so do you have a good name? Hey, I am not joking. In this area, we may just need violence, but above, near the surface, we need more than strength. I am sure you understand. That is for later. Just focus on now. Ben replied with a huff. He disliked politics. In his opinion, it was filled with double-faced people, liars, and scammers. Yes. Yes. My beloved. How about we name this one Bloodling? Bloodling? Why? There is a creature with a similar appearance in the future. The only difference is its body is all crimson, but the rest is similar. Let's name it Blackling, then. Elvira looked wide-eyed at Ben. She was at a loss for words. So, you weren't lying. You are really bad at giving names. Ben's lips twitched. Then give me another one. Do you think Bloodling is good? The creature is black. Well, you carved it from stone, even though it's detailed, I don't know its color. Elvira put more thought into it, and then her eyes lit up. How about we call all your creations Krell? Just add some title behind it for different types. Krell. Krell. That is a good name. Does it have any meaning? Yes, Krell is an ancient species, just like humans. It's said they were the species that invaded the planet and turned everything upside down. They come in legions, have high regeneration, and are very strong. That is a suitable name then. Alright, I decided I will just name this one Krell Scout. A scout? Yes, it's my first creation, so who knows how strong it is. Can you modify your creation? No, it's final. Let me try to make one. Ben put his palm forward and then used his skill. Error. Not enough mana, damn it, I forgot I spent all my mana. Name, Ben Javelantra, Class, Hive Mind Sovereign, Builder, Species, $% her, Condition, 100%, perfectly healthy, mana, 0 out of 250, Hive Mind Sovereign is a class? Then what is my species? Chapter 9, Evolution? The word written there just showed something like an error. While he wondered about this, another notification appeared. Do you want to use a red gemstone to supplement mana cost? 1 red gem is worth 1000 mana. You can use it to summon 2 Krell Scouts. The leftover will be used to recover the user's mana, yes. It was a no-brainer decision for Ben. He could just look for a gem mine near the area, then gather more. 2 masses of flesh appeared in the air, squirming and growing in size. In real time, the bones, organs, flesh, and chitin are all formed. Their appearance was just like Ben envisioned. After appearing, both of them kneeled on the ground. Sovereign, we heed your command. Elvira's eyes lit up as she studied both creatures, walking around them. Occasionally, she would knock on their shell. Can I give both of them names? Do as you will. Ben replied, uninterested. He did have the option to give them names, but his focus now was more on the information window. Name, unnamed, type, Krell Scout, evolution, not available. Note, evolution is dependent on the individual's personal experience. It's not guaranteed and can only be triggered under special circumstances. Info, requirements will show up when the creature is evolvable. What does this mean? Ben quickly thought back to the games he loved to play. If the requirement wasn't clear, usually it would be related to how the creature lived, ate, and its own mood or emotion. But these 2 Krell Scouts were different. They were linked with the hive mind and didn't have personal thoughts. If Ben ordered both of them to kneel, they would do that until they died of malnutrition without any complaints. Something that creatures with their own will wouldn't do. Aqua and Airy, how about that? Both female names? They are genderless, though. Then it's fine, right? Ben shrugged his shoulders. He registered it as their name and then sent out his first order. Look for the location of the Ant Queen's nest. Avoid confrontation if you cannot go for the kill. Yes, Sovereign. Both of them replied in unison, then stood up to carry out Ben's order. Is it alright if I go with them, my beloved? Ben quickly agreed. Finally, some silence. Now, I should create some weapons for them to use. Ben took out some bronze ore, which was the block he had recovered from killing the royal ants. He started crafting weapons, a pair of daggers, a crossbow, and armor. But just after he finished one set, he got a notification. Not enough mana, 1 out of 250, the fuck, a single set should only cost 99 mana. Does this mean I just recovered 100 mana before? This fucking system. Tax, arg. Ben screamed in frustration. A week had passed by. Ben spent this time building the kingdom. He created the design and then spent his time digging. At first, he tried to do it like a dungeon, creating a maze everywhere with some rooms. But after a few days, he realized it felt very suffocating and confusing. It was also annoying to move through the maze, wasting a lot of time every time he returned. Thus, he created 2 layers. The inner layer consisted of a huge sphere, then separated into 2 sides. The upper sphere was a living area, while the lower sphere was some kind of factory. With his experience as a construction worker and handyman, Ben created many machines. But each cost him materials and adaptation so they could be used by the ants. Of the 25 ant workers, 20 were ordered to help with construction, while the rest took care of maintaining their meals. Despite not being human, Ben still preferred cooked food. So he enforced this on all his people. The ants' main consumption came from mushrooms, which they called red-spotted mush trees. There was a reason it was called a tree: they were tall and big. Even underground, it easily grew to 10 meters. The body was white, while the cap was red in color, adorned with white spots. The appearance reminded Ben of his favorite childhood game, one that wouldn't be mentioned since the company that created it was very famous with the copyright god. Ben decided to call the area where this mushroom grew the Red Spot Forest. It was a huge opening, with a very large red-spotted mush tree in the middle. This tree acted like a pillar, allowing the ceiling to not collapse. With a pickaxe on his shoulder, Ben looked at the forest. Right now, he took one of the ant soldiers as his mount, while the other 3 were fighting against a huge mantis. Its sharp scythe gleamed, cutting down toward one of the ants. But another came, catching it midair. Unfortunately, even with its strong jaw, It barely broke the mantis chitin. The last soldier ant came, tackling the mantis to the ground. As I thought, ants can only use their jaws or tackle in their attacks. Their limbs are only useful for them to walk around. They are useless, even in work. The jobs they can do are very limited. Ben kicked at the ant's back and leaped into the sky. With the pickaxe in hand, he hit the mantis in the chest. "Take this, you green bug. Send you flying." Executing the skill, the mantis was pushed back by 4 meters. The mantis then tried to stand up, but the 4 ant soldiers had already made their move. Utilizing the opportunity, their jaws cut through the cracked armor. The mantis screeched in pain. Ben then came close, his hand starting to transform. Consume. It turned into a huge mouth filled with a sharp array of teeth. With a single gulp, the whole mantis was eaten. Nightmare mantis consumed. Acquired 12 biomass, no new part. Damn it, my luck is so bad. This is the 10th mantis we've hunted. Ben clicked his tongue in annoyance, then ordered the ant soldiers to chop the mushroom tree. Chapter 10, Ant King. He could do it himself, but he just wasn't in the mood for it. Splash. The mushroom tree fell, splurting blood everywhere. But Ben was not surprised. He had seen this happen multiple times. The tree's fiber was like that of meat, it had blood and veins. Ben would then order the ant workers to chop it up into meatballs and then roast them over a fire. Normally, one ant could only carry one red-spotted mush tree. However, with Alex's invention, they could easily gather up to 999 of them before going back. Or, if Alex blockified it, he could bring back 9,999 pieces of meaty fungi block. From a single tree, he could get 9 to 10 blocks, so it wasn't much different. Ben then pulled up the kingdom building screen. Under the status, it showed the current territory under his control. Krell Kingdom, Forces, Krell Scout, 2, Ant Soldier, 4, Ant Worker, 25, Stockpile, 125 pieces red spotted mush tree, 842 pieces roasted mush ball, 12,345 pieces stone brick, 12 pieces stone tile, 2 pieces stone wall, facility, 1 kitchen, barracks, 2 houses, 2 warehouses, 1 junk storage, trap, 24 pieces spike trap, 43 pieces boulder trap. The stone bricks were created by Ben from stone blocks. The ant workers would then take and stack them on top of each other to create buildings. Right now, they are focused on adding more housing facilities. Ben also created a sewage system, where everything was then pooled at the end into junk storage. Although the only one who used it was mostly Elvira. With his class and complete control over his body, he didn't have any waste nor need to go to the bathroom. He only did that for cleaning the walls and tiles are running out, but my stone blocks are also almost emptied. Seems I need to start digging deeper again. If only Elvira found that Ant Queen, we could capture her and force her to keep procreating. Ben had an idea to capture the Ant Queen and turn her into some kind of biomass farm. He planned to make another sphere-like chamber for them, close to his kingdom. Ben also learned something as he expanded and built. If he created a structure in an area that was close to his current territory, the area would then be counted as part of his kingdom. As for the kingdom name, he changed it from Six-Legged Cartel. Ben, here you are. We finally found the queen that escaped from me. But there is a problem. What is it? They made a nest in a biome similar to this one. With the nutrients, the Ant Queen is focused on creating her army. In total, there are more than 200 soldiers. Didn't you say the Ant Queen can produce even more? Yes, but that's if they produce weaker ants. That's why I say this is trouble. Almost all of the ants are ant soldiers. It seems she was prepared to wage war back with me to take her territory. Wait, does this mean she will come after us? Elvira gave a nod. Each of the Krell scouts should be able to kill 10 ant soldiers or 2 royal ants. I know you're thinking of waiting for them to attack us, but in that case, they will come with even more numbers. Are you sure you can defeat all of them? Based on your observation, how many ants can they breed in a day? Ben wanted to calculate the possible enemy they faced. He still didn't give up on creating a trap for them. It was the only way he knew to beat that many with their current strength. If she keeps going at this pace, there should be 20 new ants per day. But I have a feeling she's gonna grow it to 1,000 before attacking. Or focus the rest of the nutrients to create royal ants or even a king ant. King ant? Never heard of them. Even in his old world, Ben had never heard of an ant colony having a king. Based on some documentary he watched, it only had an ant queen, with many drones working, cleaning the queen's body, and helping her produce the eggs. The other important role was the ant princess. They would be sent outside to create new colonies, making sure their species kept expanding and surviving if one of them met an untimely end. King ants take a long time to incubate. It also costs the ant queen her life. If she succeeds in giving birth to one, the colony will change structure. The king ant will visit all the ant queens separated from their colonies. He will gather them all, creating one supermassive faction. You say if she succeeds. How high are the odds? Not large, only around 1% at most. That is why there's also a chance she won't go that far. But remember her personality and how I defeated her? I feel this is not out of the realm of possibility. So the ant queen is sentient? Yes, why else do you think she has a hive mind skill? Ah yeah, I forgot that. How about negotiation? No chance at all? No. Didn't you listen to me? They want to take revenge. Ben shook his head. That is not what I mean. Ben explained his plan to Elvira. After a lengthy explanation, her eyes lit up. It can work, but don't bring the ants. You should also do this. She leaned in, whispering into Alex's ear. They went back and forth multiple times, until they finalized the plan. Sometime later, inside a dark cavern, a huge ant was lying on the ground. It was even bigger in size than Elvira's ant queen form. Its stomach was pulsing in large size. Different from what Elvira thought, the queen was impatient. In her last escape, she had been ambushed by other monsters underground, causing her grievous wounds. Her life was nearing its end. Considering this, she decided to risk it all. If she was going down, she would pull her enemy down with her. Ah! My son. You should become the strongest ant king and take revenge for your mother. She then ordered the drones to supply her with more nutrients. A few hours passed by, and the ant queen's stomach started contracting. The chitin became so thin it looked almost transparent. A long, painful screech reverberated in the air as a claw tore through the ant queen's flesh. Chapter 11, versus the ant king. Nearby in the tunnel, Ben was now walking with one of the Krell scouts. His plan was to act as another faction that wanted to cooperate with the ant queen to attack Elvira. Of course, saying it outright would be weird. That was why they cooked up a plan. Ben would come close to the nest and get attacked by Elvira. She would then escape, leaving Ben to negotiate with the ant queen. Afterward, Alex would try to pull some of her army into the trap they had made. But things were completely different. The moment he reached the ant queen's territory, the dozen ant soldiers there just watched him in silence. They did not make a move, they just stood like statues. Am I in the right place? This should be near the entrance. Ben motioned the Nell scout to approach closer. But even when the scout inched away, the ants still didn't make any move. They should have attacked, and they proceeded to the next step. Curious, Ben threw a stone block on top of the ant. Bam! It fell down, squishing the ant's head. You get 10 units of biomass, they're still not moving even after all this? Ben was curious, but there was no way he'd let go of this opportunity. He looked around. 1, 2, 3, 26 ants. 26 blocks of stone appeared on top of them. Pulled by gravity, they turned into swords of Damocles. Ben's lips curled into a grin. With this much, he should have gathered enough biomass to create a few more scouts. But his smile didn't last long. From the Creel sense, he could tell something dangerous was coming. A projectile moved at supersonic speed, even faster than a bullet in Ben's old world. Bam! It shot through a hole in Ben's chest. A sharp pain spread out from the wound, but Ben paid no mind to it. The flesh had already begun to move, closing up the wound and healing it at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ben kicked the ground, leaping to the side. A few more projectiles passed by, hitting the cavern. Ben squinted his eyes. He could see the projectile was chitin. That looks like it's been torn away from the ant. Unfortunately, before he could learn more, the ground started to shake. From the tunnel entrance, a group of ants started coming out. Ben quickly turned around. With a pickaxe in hand, he created a new tunnel. With his enhanced strength, he could swing it quickly, allowing him to stay ahead of the ants. While he ran, Ben's mind quickly churned. Should I bring them to the trap? Or do something else? But what can I do? Meanwhile, Elvira had learned everything that had happened. The other Creel scout was with her. This is troublesome. With that kind of power, it's probably the king. Based on her knowledge, the king's next step would be to take over the nest and eat the rest of the ants to finish its evolution. He would then choose 4 princesses to turn into his new queens. Afterward, a new breeding round would start. The king would provide the nutrients, giving birth to ant generals. These generals would then be sent out to hunt for more nutrients, while the ant queens would start breeding ant soldiers non-stop. The colony would then start expanding aggressively. Seems I have no choice, just in case. With that thought, her fingers started glowing blue. She then made a few gestures, activating some kind of spell. Back to Ben, his luck had turned worse. Instead of digging a tunnel far away from his enemy, he had fallen into the queen's chamber. In front of him stood the Ant King. His appearance reminded Ben of Elvira. His upper body was humanoid, while his lower body was completely ant. But despite having a humanoid form with 2 arms, He still looked like an insect. His jaw was still chewing on some flesh, while his hand held some kind of sharp object. With a closer look, Ben recognized it as chitin armor torn from one of the ants. Swoosh! The king threw it again. But this time, Ben tilted his head, avoiding the attack. While doing this, his senses turned sharp, detecting all enemies in the chamber. 3 ant princesses, one of this monstrous ant, probably the ant king. No soldiers. That half-eaten big corpse is probably the ant queen, but she's dead. His eyes turned toward the entrance and the hole on top of the dome. Creel scout, buy me time. With his order, the Creel leaped toward the ant king. His hand clenched into a fist, punching toward the king's head. The ant king looked at it with interest. He didn't even move. The punch hit his face, creating a loud boom. The Creel scout used his leg to throw another kick, then used the momentum to distance himself from the ant king. Meanwhile, Ben jumped upward. He took out a stone wall, but this one had the other side filled with spikes. Build a spiked stone wall. With his order, the wall materialized, blocking the opening. He proceeded to create a few more layers. Looking down, Ben took out another spiked stone wall with sharp angles pointing toward the ant king. He took out many, filling almost the entire room. Chitinous shield. Metamorphosis. After activating these 2 skills, Ben's body started to change. Jet black chitin armor covered his entire body. One of his hands transformed into an ant claw, while the other took out a weapon he had made. It was a bronze spear. He then threw it toward the Creel scout. Before they had escaped, Ben had put it in his inventory since it wasn't effective to wield one in narrow tunnels while escaping. The ant king looked upward at the falling wall. His jaw opened, and then a very loud scream came from it. If Ben were still human, he would have already died from the shock. His eardrums would have exploded. Thankfully, with his metamorphosis ability, Ben could quickly transform his body. He removed his hearing. All the walls cracked under that one attack, turning into small debris. The Creel, who was too close to the ant king, was also stunned. Its chitin armor cracked. The spear fell down, landing beside the Creel, followed by the rain of rocks. Ben used them as a kind of platform, jumping toward the ant king. Chapter 12. Danger. He raised his fist, punching the ant king right in the face, then rolled on the ground toward one of its legs. Ben didn't even need to look to know that his attack barely caused any damage. He could still feel his fists stinging with pain. If he compared it to his old life, it was like hitting a block of iron with bare fists. He took out his pickaxe and then hit the stone surface underneath the ant king's leg. Bam. Bam. Ding. You get 1 stone block, ding. You get 1 stone block, ding. You get 1 stone block. With a hole that Ben made, the ant king lost his balance. Its body tilted to one side. Ben kicked the ground and put his pickaxe back into his inventory. Craft bronze hammer. Modify its size. Crafting completed. 50 mana used. A huge, imbalanced hammer appeared in his hand. The handle was the size of an average wooden staff, like those on brooms, while the hammerhead was larger, with the surface filled with sharp spikes. It looked like the hammer used to soften meat. Both his hands turned bulkier as he increased his muscle mass. Then, with all his strength, he hit the ant. Bang. Krang. This time, his attack worked. The chitin armor on the ant king's head cracked, followed by a loud screech. Knowing his attack worked, Ben wanted to continue, but suddenly, he felt like he was hit by a truck. The ant king's hand swiped at his stomach, launching him into the air. He expected to crash into the stone wall, but to his surprise, what greeted him was something soft and squishy. My beloved, time your attack with me. Ben looked back and saw some kind of magical barrier that stopped his attack. Elvira was also there, with a confident smile on her face. Her hand glowed, dissipating the barrier and allowing Ben to land on the surface. That crack, can you break it apart? Ben didn't know what spells Elvira had in her reservoir, but considering her status as a regressor, he was sure her fighting capabilities were more than she had shown when fighting against him. I can, but do you have a further plan? Ben nodded. As long as his flesh is exposed, I will focus the attack there. The goal is to stun him enough for me to use consume. Alright, let's go with that. Buy me some time, but remember, I can only cast this spell once. After that, my mana will run out. 1 chance. That will be enough. The ant king's eyes gleamed with killing intent. You bug. How dare you hurt me? He said with a monstrous face. You are the bug here. Ben screamed, dashing forward to meet the king in a clash. As he did this, he ordered the wounded Grell scouts to guard Elvira while the healthy ones helped attack the ant king. This time, the ant king's movements were more aggressive. He didn't just stand still. Despite his large body, he agilely dodged Ben's hammer attack. The Grell scouts, meanwhile, could only try to distract the ant king. They jumped around, trying to attack the crack on the Ant King's head. Elvira, meanwhile, closed her eyes. 2 magic circles appeared around her, then moved and combined into one. Her eyes opened, and another magic circle appeared, drawing on top of the fused circle. To think I will need to use this spell now, Elvira thought with a sigh. It hadn't been long since she started her new life, and she already needed to pull one of her trump cards from her last life. My beloved, dodge. 3 fusion magic. Volt flare lance. Swoosh. A fire lance infused with electricity appeared in the air. With Elvira's order, it started spinning at high speed, then shot toward the Ant King. Ben dodged one of the Ant's attacks while ordering the Krell scouts to grasp one of the Ant King's legs. He wanted to impede its movement to ensure the attack hit. The Ant King looked at the incoming magic. Despite being impeded, he still jumped upward, trying to dodge it. But like it was alive, the projectile also curved upward. It seems she really could kill me if she wanted. Just how many more cards does she keep hidden? In their last fight, Elvira didn't use any spells other than Fireball. Comparing it to his spell, the difference was like heaven and earth. If he had gotten hit with this while still human, Ben was sure he would have been burned to ash with nothing remaining. Even at a distance, he could feel the scorching heat coming from the attack. Boom. The Ant King got hit and then fell to the ground. Through the dust, Ben could see the aftermath. The attack blew up a quarter of the Ant King's head, revealing part of its brain. Electricity crackled around its body, tying it up. Looking at this, Ben's eyes gleamed dangerously. He kicked the ground and leaped toward the Ant King. The moment his hand made contact, the electricity also spread through his body, numbing his movements. But Ben pushed through. It wasn't that he was immune to the paralysis. Ben used metamorphosis to forcefully move his body. His hand pierced through the Ant King's brain. Consume. Elvira could see the Ant King's body start bulking like something was rampaging inside. Her face was pale, her eyelids heavy as her mana was now dangerously low, but Elvira still forced herself to watch just in case something happened. Despite all these attacks, she could tell the Ant King still had a lot of mana and vitality in his body. I hope it works. If it fails, Elvira thought in fear. She knew the side effects of Consume. If the skill fails, Ben will be stunned for 5 seconds. That might seem short, but in a fight like this, that time was enough to decide who won or lost. She tried to carefully create another spell, just in case everything failed. You fucking bug. Just give up. Ben roared in anger. Even now, he was still fighting the Ant King inside its body. He didn't know how the Ant King did it, but it felt like its flesh was alive, moving and fighting back against his Consume skill. While he was stuck, the barrier on the ceiling cracked open. Chapter 13, Game Over? The ant jumped from the hole. They pointed their menacing jaws toward his neck. The Krell scout took the hammer that Ben had made from the ground and jumped upward to meet the attack. Bam! It succeeded. The ant soldier was sent flying into the wall. But more leaped down, pouring out from the hole, overwhelming the Krell. Seeing this, Elvira gritted her teeth. She pointed her finger, then yelled, "My beloved, withstand this." Lightning magic. Chain lightning. Elvira's expectation was for her magic to incapacitate them, even for a moment. This would allow Ben's consumption to do its effect completely, eating the Ant King. As for the rest of the ant soldiers, after the Ant King died, control of them would be given to the Ant Princess. But she didn't feel worried. Even if she fainted after the spell, her chain lightning would stun all of them for a second, giving enough time for Ben to recover and take care of them all. As she expected, after casting the spell, everything turned dark, and she became unconscious. The lightning shot out, jumping through everyone in the vicinity, not even sparing the Krell scout. Ben could feel his head getting dizzy, his muscles spasming. But a screen appeared in front of his eyes, making him smile. Ant King consumed. Acquired 129 biomass, and Ant King body part, enhanced carapace. The Ant King's body fell limp to the ground. Recovered, Ben quickly looked around. He could see many of the ant soldiers were collapsed on the ground. He also looked at the Ant Princess, who stood there like a statue. Turning his gaze further, his eyes widened. Ben leaped forward and then took Elvira from the Krell scout. He felt her pulse. Thank God she is all right. It's just overexertion. Is this one of those states like mana deviation? Elvira had told him about this before, and he felt curious. What would happen if someone ran out of mana? In most stories or games he played, running out of mana wouldn't give them any side effects. If there was any, it wouldn't be permanent like chi deviation in cultivation novels. Ben looked back, hesitated for a moment, but with steeled gaze, he ran back toward their territory. The 2 Krell scouts also joined behind him. One was really wounded. It had lost one of its arms while its carapace was cracked open, showing its purplish flesh, while the other barely had any damage. Ben looked forward at the path, but his senses were focused on his back. Seems no one is coming after me. TCH, what a loss. I should have taken at least one of the ant princesses. Ben was sure the ant princess would escape far away using the opportunity. Now, he needed to think of more ways to gain a farm to produce biomass. Halfway through the journey, Ben suddenly stopped. The tunnel started vibrating. He turned his gaze to the side, feeling something big was coming at them. Damn it. One after another. At this point, Ben was sure he would face many bad luck in this new life. If something happened, it would never stop at one point. Where the fuck is my plot armor or lucky encounter? Ben cursed in his mind. He was transmigrated and got a system. It gave him a lot of things that should have been a cheat, but so far, his journey has not been smooth at all. Don't protagonists usually get lucky by now? For example, finding something by accident that just fills what he needs. But no. Not only did he face many problems, but even after expanding the base and sending out scouts, he failed to find the gemstone mine. Ben kicked the ground, raising his pace, sprinting toward his base. Fighting it out was not an option. He was now carrying Elvira on his back, and his mana was almost depleted. Even though with biomass, his wounds had all recovered, without mana, his attacks would be limited. His only hope now was the trap. The wall cracked with a loud boom. Ben could only see a giant hole filled with an array of sharp teeth. He could not even see the whole creature. It turned toward him like a black hole, eating everything in the path. As the tunnel expanded, Ben got a clearer view. He still couldn't see the body, but now he could see part of its jaw. Is this the hellworm Elvira talked about? This worm randomly roamed between floors, and everyone treated it like a catastrophe. Fuck. With that size, even my trap won't work. A thought came to his mind to use salt as the opponent was a worm, but he didn't have any in stock to try it. No need to mention the amount needed to cover the whole creature when he couldn't even see it now. Metamorphosis. Ben used his remaining mana, creating 2 extra arms. Bang. Bang. Ben started digging a new tunnel to escape from the hell worm. Bringing it to his base would only destroy it for nothing. His hands moved fast, digging only enough for him to pass by. Shit. Shit. Ben could see the jaws coming closer toward him. Seconds felt like an eternity. The digging that he had done thousands of times with ease now felt so slow. Faster. Faster. Ben's hands moved in a blur as fast as possible. The sound of the ground being eaten, the cracks of the tunnel, each one felt like a countdown to his doom. Dust flew, and notifications appeared in his eyes as he kept acquiring more blocks, but it all didn't matter to him now. In a few seconds, Ben had dug 5 blocks deep, but it was not enough to completely avoid the hell worm. His adrenaline surged, and his speed raised even further. Ben could feel it, the presence was now only a block away from him. Ding. You get 1 stone block, ding. You get 1 stone block. Ben's lips curled into a resigned smile, he turned his gaze to the side. Sharp, smelly, and pitch dark. That was what greeted him. Is this it? Game over. Chapter 14, Stranded Drip. 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 The sound of water echoed in the damp, smelly area. Elvira, who had run out of mana, began to regain her consciousness. Normally, she would be in a daze and take a few minutes before regaining any clarity, but this time the pungent smell jolted her brain awake. If you're awake, use your magi to make us float. You can do that, right? Ben asked in a gruff voice. He could feel the slight movement on his back. Where are we? Elvira asked, confused. Not even in all her past lives had she ever seen something like this. Other than the dampness and sound of water, everywhere else was complete darkness, darkness that not even her sharpened eyes could pierce. But it was different for Ben, he could see everything. Her question made him realize her limitation, but it didn't matter to him. Right now, he had something more urgent. We're inside the hell worm. What? Elvira's eyes almost popped out. How could they have survived being eaten by a walking catastrophe? That was her question now. But Ben cut her thoughts short. Before she could say anything, he spoke in a stern tone, "Stop asking meaningless questions and make us float." Elvira then looked down. Since Ben had requested they float, the reason must be something below or up in the ceiling. Her heart stiffened the moment she saw what was happening. Her gaze softened, and her lips curled into a short smile. "You're always cold to me, but I know it. In reality, you care about me. My beloved. Spare me your fantasy. If you die, I die. You think I'll let that happen? Anyway, go on quickly. My biomass is running out." After they had been swallowed by the hell worm, Ben found them inside its intestine. Its title as a walking catastrophe was nothing to scoff at. Its digestive liquid could melt everything as long as it was given time. At first, Ben had tried using rocks and bronze ore as makeshift scaffolding, but both were pointless. They didn't even last a second. At that time, in panic, he quickly spawned as many blocks as he could to buy as much time as possible, hoping to pass through this digestive liquid. While doing this, he even tried creating a boat or whatever form he could in desperation. When his final block melted and he fell toward the digestive liquid, Ben had really thought it was all over. Even if he could regenerate, if his entire body submerged, his fate was clear: death. Then there was also Elvira. Different from him, she couldn't regenerate endlessly. If she died, he died. At that moment, he had raised Elvira as high as possible and desperately prayed, God, Buddha, or whoever being up there that sent me here, please let me survive. Thankfully, the author that sent him to this liquid still needed the story to continue. The liquid was quite shallow, allowing him to walk while keeping himself regenerating. It had been an hour since this happened. Elvira let out a chuckle. She didn't mind at all Ben's answer. Even as he said that, Elvira could feel his concern. As a netheress, her values were different from humans. If Elvira were in his shoes, she would have cut herself into pieces to reduce the weight, allowing them to move faster. After all, her body was not weak. She could survive even with only her limbs and head alone for days. She could also regenerate with mana afterward. She raised her index finger, creating two magics. Lumina, Feather Glide. A sphere of light appeared near them, brightening the whole place. At the same time, Ben could feel a draft of wind surrounding them. It then lifted their bodies upward, just inches away from the bubbling acid liquid. Elvira could see that part of Ben's leg was left only with bone, while the other was covered in melted chitin. To maximize time, Ben had only focused all his armor into specific parts. The goal was that as long as he could stand upright and walk, the rest didn't matter. Despite his regeneration, that should be painful as hell, Elvira thought. Now that I think of it, did I ever have someone treat me like this? Feelings of guilt and happiness started overwhelming her heart. Meanwhile, Ben was oblivious to all this. He was focused on looking for a way to escape. The surroundings were like a huge tunnel, with the only difference being the wall. If a tunnel was made of concrete, then this one was a grotesque version made from flesh. But the flesh didn't make it weaker. Instead, it was far stronger than normal concrete. With Ben's current level of strength, he could easily punch a hole in a concrete wall. But this meat wall? He already knew it was better not to try. Who knew what kind of response he would get? The only entrance is the mouth, but those sharp teeth. Yeah, I don't want to experience that again. But then, where should I go? Move toward the end of the tail? But Ben wasn't sure that was how worm biology worked. Do they even excrete the leftover? Looking at how potent the acid was, he doubted the worm needed to do that. I should have paid more attention in my biology class, Ben thought with a heavy sigh. Stuck with no idea, he asked, Elvira, do you have any idea? Oh, yeah, sorry. Dazed a bit there. If you mean escaping this hell worm, then no. I've never heard anything about it. TCH, so what now? We're stuck? Well, even my mana won't last forever. If it keeps going like this, our fate is sealed. For now, how about we try to explore? This worm eats everything. Maybe we can find something useful. Anything that could survive the worm's digestive fluid would be a treasure in Ben's mind. And it wasn't like he had another choice. Well, at the very least, do you know how long this worm is? I don't know. No one's ever seen its complete body. The worm also often moves between layers, so I guess it's at least a few kilometers long. Ben's lips twitched as his gaze turned toward the endless tunnel. Let's just hope we find something, then. Chapter 15, Privileged position. Time seemed to lose meaning as they floated through the endless, grotesque tunnel. Despite their levitation, Elvira somehow still managed to cling to Ben. At first, he found it annoying, but now he just ignored it. Bored by the silence, Elvira finally spoke up. Hey, my beloved, how's life in your old world? Ben raised an eyebrow. Nothing interesting. Just a boring life. A boring life? That doesn't sound like the kind of place someone like you would came from, Elvira replied, her tone laced with curiosity. In her previous lives, the books she'd read always depicted humans as living in utopias, standing at the top, creating all other species. Humans were practically gods. Ben let out a dry chuckle. Someone like me? Ha. Believe me, Elvira, I'm nothing special. A dime a dozen. Heck, a dime of a billion. Even if I died, no one would care. Nothing would change. The world would just keep spinning like I was never there. Elvira's gaze softened. Well, that's kind of diabolical. I'm sure someone must have cared about you. I don't know much about human culture outside of what I've read, but even my kind, Etheris, known for calculating gain and loss, value family bonds. Ben snorted. Family bonds? Is that what got you killed twice? That's different. Elvira's voice faltered, her usual confidence slipping. She didn't need to say it aloud, she knew exactly what Ben meant. After all, it was her own blood relative that had betrayed her, pushing her into this cycle of regression. The shift in her mood made Ben feel a pang of guilt. Not wanting to apologize directly, he sighed heavily. Before I ended up here, I was just a construction worker. Construction worker? Elvira tilted her head. Isn't that a privileged position? Etheris is civilization focused on magic. Everyone there, even toddler, can use magic to create a small building. Molding sand into rock is not that hard as long they have the mana for it. So for someone to be specialized in construction, they need to be really good at what they're doing. Not just in architecture. Each one have their own secret formula on creating unique material with special effect making highly sought after. Usually they will have a long queue that to good their service not only one need to pay exorbitant price, they could wait for years. Ben blinked. Privileged? No. Where I come from, being a construction worker is bottom of the barrel. We barely earn enough to survive, let alone pay off bills. My life was nothing but waking up, working all day, buying some cheap beer, and scraping by. Rinse and repeat. It was a boring, dead-end life. Elvira frowned, confused. That's quite bleak. She tried to process what he was saying, comparing it to her understanding of serfs, people stuck as servants forever, with no hope for a better life. Tell me about it, Ben muttered. People talk about changing their lives, but so what? If you're not born into a rich family, changing anything is like trying to push a camel through the eye of a needle. Camel? Eye of a needle? Elvira tilted her head again, her curiosity piqued. Ben waved it off. It's just a saying. Doesn't matter. The point is, life back there sucked. And stop comparing me to the humans from your world. We're clearly not the same. What about family? Or friends? Surely you had someone. Not really. Ben shrugged. My parents passed when I was young. Friends? Sure, but they were just people I hung out with when I had time. Life gets in the way of anything deeper. Everyone's too busy trying to survive. He smirked faintly. Besides, who wants to hang out with a guy covered in dirt and cement dust all the time? Cement? Elvira's brow furrowed. What's that? Building material. Back in my world, we didn't have magic, so we invented stuff to make life easier. Cement, concrete, steel, you name it. But honestly, compared to what I've seen here, it's all junk. He paused, then added, anyway, enough about me. Why don't you tell me more about this world? That's more useful than rehashing my boring past. Let's see. There are 7 factions dominating this world. No. Ben cut her off with a groan. Spare me the politics. I'll figure it out as we go. For now, I just care about getting out of this worm. Elvira pouted but relented. Fine. What do you want to know, then? Your world. Magic, mana, weapons, anything we can use to escape. Maybe I can come up with something using my creation system. Hearing his words made Elvira's heart flutter, but she deliberately avoided talking about herself. Magic? You're asking the wrong person. Every Etheris is born with the innate ability to control magic. Wait, what? So, you're telling me everyone in your race is born with unique abilities and can use magic like it's nothing? Exactly. Our unique abilities come from the high concentration of mana we're born with. Of course, not everyone has the same talent. Some are more gifted than others. For example. She straightened up proudly. I was born with an SSS tier magic talent. Ben raised an eyebrow. Of course you were. You wouldn't be royalty otherwise. Her proud smile quickly faded into a pout, but she didn't argue. Ben wasn't wrong. In the Etheris hierarchy, strength and talent were everything. Without them, her family would have been dethroned long ago. So, what can you do? Anything useful? Like, I don't know, imbuing items with magic? Ben pressed, still clinging to the hope that she might have a way out of their predicament. No, at least not now. Elvira said with a pang guilt. There it was, another secret. You say you want to be my partner, even going around calling my your beloved, but in the end you still keep many secret. Elvira. If you're really serious you should tell me everything. That. Elvira want to say something but she hesitated. See, don't blame me to not believe you. It's not like we have good first impression. Ben said with a gruff, then changed his focus observing his surrounding. Chapter 16, Junkvor. Elvira watched Ben's back with a complicated gaze. I'm sorry, my beloved, but I just... She couldn't bring herself to finish the thought, her gaze lingering on the melted carapace covering him. Oh, finally, something we can use. Ben's voice cut through her thoughts, excitement lacing his tone as his sharp eyes caught something floating on the digestive liquid. Elvira poured more of her mana, raising their pace. She She was also curious about what kind of thing could survive here. They spent the next half hour until they finally reached the location. "What the hell is this? Do you have any idea, Elvira?" Ben asked, as what he saw was only a lump of white objects. It looked like a rock, but its texture was smooth like a gemstone. At first, Ben thought it was something like a bone, but he felt it wasn't. His system also didn't give him any information. Elvira gazed at it intently, her mind churning, thinking about what kind of item it could be, but she didn't have any idea. That was until it suddenly started to vibrate. A realization hit her like a truck. In panic, she pulled Ben's hand and sprinted forward. Ben was surprised and wanted to ask what happened, but now no words were needed. Fuck. Damn my luck. He just kept sprinting, running away from a hellworm, and now, even inside its stomach, he still needed to escape. The white rock he had seen emerged from the liquid. Its appearance was very similar to the hellworm outside. But the difference was that this one was far smaller, human-sized, at least in diameter. Seeing Ben and Elvira, it started screeching, then moved forward at fast speed. The distance between them lessened in a blink. Just what the hell is that? Do you have any idea? This is just my speculation, but it's probably true. I read in the past about the era of Utopia when humans still flourished. They had created a creature named Junkvar. It could eat anything and adapt its body's size based on need. I never thought this creature still existed, but then, seeing that moving white thing reminded me of Junkvar biology. Even though it could alter its body, its original form was the same. Junkvar? Despite the serious situation, Ben almost let out a laugh. This reminded him of some drunk talk he had with his friend. If they became a god, what would they do? His friend said he would create a utopia, but Ben was different. He said he would create a monster and name it Junkvar, to eat all the trash in the world. This included all the human trash that exploited everyone else. At that time, it was nothing more than self-indulgent imagination, as he hated his boss. But now, seeing one in reality was just hilarious to him. Coincidence? Who knew? Why are you reacting like that? Elvira asked, confused, seeing his weird expression. Nothing. Forget it. So basically, that white thing is the core of this hellworm? Doesn't this mean if we kill it, the one outside will also die? Probably yes, but Ben, I'm not sure we can beat it. It's the core. There's no way it's weak. And we are inside its body now. Ben looked around, making sure there were no other enemies. He let out a sigh of relief as the grotesque walls didn't show any sign of changing into another monster. But this relief was short-lived. Gruel. The worm's screeches grew louder, the sound tearing through the air like a harbinger of doom. It was getting closer, too close. Ben fought the urge to look back. There was no point, it would only slow him down. But Elvira was different. Her mono-perception told her exactly how far the worm was. 10 seconds. That's all we have. Her mind raced. Should she use that? She hesitated. It would cost her, dearly. Her eyes drifted to Ben, locking onto the scar on his carapace armor, still not fully regenerated. The sight reminded her of everything that had happened. "My beloved, I have a way out of this," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "Then what are you waiting for? Do it." Ben snapped. "But I need you to trust me. No matter what happens, don't interfere." Ben's brow furrowed. He hesitated, then shook his head. "No." Elvira stared at him, stunned. This wasn't the answer she expected. The situation was urgent, yet he still refused to trust her. A pang of hurt twisted inside her. "Why? I'm just asking you to go first. And not look back." "What?" Ben scoffed. "You planning to say something dumb like sacrificing yourself? Or you've got some secret trick you don't want me to see? Either way, my answer's the same. No. As I said, I don't trust you. And we're soul-bonded. If you die, I die. About that." Elvira bit her lip. "You're not exactly human anymore. Even if part of your soul gets destroyed, I think you'll be fine." "You think?" Ben's voice sharpened. "Just listen. The worm is almost here. Which one is riskier? If your body's intact, your soul can recover. But if you die here with nothing left, then it's over, for real." Ben replied with his action. He suddenly made a curve, then flew directly toward the worm. He then focused all the carapace into his hand, creating some kind of makeshift blade. But it wasn't a simple blade, he made the edge as thin as possible, hoping it would allow the sword to work on the creature. "Elvira, once again, no," Ben said while raising his sword. The edge cut through the air at high speed, moving toward the worm's jaw. But the worm showed no fear. It kept its pace, its massive maw opening wider. The rows of razor-sharp teeth within made Ben gulp, but it was too late to regret his decision now. Deep down, he knew Elvira's plan had the best odds. Following her suggestion would have been a logical choice, but logic didn't always dictate action. Sometimes, emotion took over. Despite everything, changing species, adapting to a new life, at his core, Ben was still Ben, a human. And the thought of leaving her behind felt abhorrent. A silhouette of a familiar face appeared in his mind, one he thought he had buried and would never see again, someone from his past life. Never again. No more running. No more regrets. Chapter 17, Any ideas? The sword clashed. Unfortunately, Ben's effort is wasted. His makeshift sword shattered the moment it clashed against the worm's skin. It's like bashing a rock with glass bottle. The result is catastrophic failure. The worm's quadripartite jaw passed off the destroyed weapon, then moved towards Ben's head. He quickly crouched down, barely dodging the attack, but the worm is not finished. Its body lashed out like a whip, sending Ben's flying backward. He could have tried to parry it, but instead he used it as momentum to put some distance between them. But this position made him vulnerable. The worm coiled its body, like a spring, it then shot forward like a bullet. Stone bulwark. Elvira shouted as mana erupted from her body, coalescing into a rock shield in front of Ben, blocking the worm's path. But the barrier only held for a fleeting moment. Bam. Crack. Crack. Stone bulwark. Stone bulwark. Stone bulwark. She yelled, conjuring barrier after barrier, desperately buying time for Ben. Watching her spell in action, an idea clicked in Ben's mind. Memories of his old biology class surfaced. Elvira, can you make something like salt with your magic? He called out, his voice sharp with urgency. It was a long shot, but at this point, he figured there was nothing to lose. Salt? What? Why? She asked, baffled. Do you have a way or not? Just trust me and hand it over. Elvira frowned, completely at a loss. In her mind, salt was just for cooking, what could it possibly do here? But seeing the determination in Ben's eyes, she relented. Her fingers danced through the air, sketching a glowing pattern. A magic circle shimmered into existence, hovering before her. Quick! Throw me everything you've got. Ben shouted, his tone leaving no room for argument. Nodding, Elvira reached into the circle and pulled out an entire sack of salt. Ben's eyes widened. No way, she actually has that much. That's got to be at least 20 kilos, he muttered under his breath, barely believing it. Without missing a beat, he focused his mind, shaping a makeshift weapon. This time, he didn't forge a sword. Instead, he created something he hadn't used since high school, a baseball bat. Ben calculated the timing, his muscles coiling like a spring. He spun on his heel, facing the worm once more. Taking a deep breath, his shoulders tensed. Bam! With a powerful swing, he struck the sack with all his might. Thankfully, the sack wasn't an ordinary one, otherwise, it would have been torn apart by his hit. The heavy bundle shot forward, tearing through the air before smashing into the worm's razor-sharp teeth. Swoosh! The sack exploded on impact, unleashing a rain of salt straight into the monster's gaping maw. Please work. There's no way they made this thing without a countermeasure. Ben thought, retreating back to Elvira's side. As a human, he knew that no creature, especially one designed to devour anything, could exist without a flaw. It might have been named Junkvor as a joke, but its ability to consume and adapt to anything was terrifying. A monster like that. What if it could evolve based on what it ate? The thought sent a chill down his spine. My beloved, just what are you planning? Why salt? Elvira asked, her eyes fixed on the worm. The creature shuddered violently but didn't retaliate. It was stunned, writhing as if in shock. Ben exhaled, gripping his bat tightly. Back in my world, worms die when you pour salt on them. Elvira's eyes widened, an intrigued sparkle flashing across her face. Really? That's fascinating. I've never heard of such knowledge before. Before she could press him further, Ben quickly added, if you're gonna ask me how it works. I don't know. I forgot. Elvira's lips curled into a playful smile, her excitement palpable. That's fine. I know a magic that can replicate your old memories. I just need your permission. Her eyes lit up with the eagerness of a child discovering a new toy. Ben blinked, suddenly uneasy. Let's talk about that later, he said, waving it off. The idea of revisiting his past intrigued him, especially his last moments. He wanted to know how he was sent to this world. But for now, they need to come out first from this situation first. The smooth, white skin of the worm began to wrinkle, deep creases forming like cracks in dry earth. At the same time, the worm's inner walls trembled violently before constricting inward, squeezing the space around them. The once spacious chamber was closing in fast. Then, with a sickening snap, those cracks split open, revealing the churning, acidic digestive liquid beneath. It bubbled and sizzled like boiling lava, rising rapidly. Shit, move. Ben yelled as the searing liquid surged upward. He and Elvira instinctively floated higher, propelled by their magic to stay clear of the deadly pool. "My beloved, any ideas?" Elvira asked, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. Ben scanned their surroundings, his mind racing. They had no way of knowing if it was dying or just adapting. Either way, the rising acid would get to them first. "There's no running from this," he muttered, jaw tightening. His eyes flicked back to the worm, then to Elvira. He made his decision in a heartbeat. Before Elvira could cast another spell, Ben dashed forward. "My beloved, wait!" she cried, reaching out, but he was already moving. This time, he channeled all his armor into his arms, encasing them in thick layers of carapace. From his inventory, he pulled out the blockify pickaxe, gripping it tightly. As he closed the distance, the scene before him was chaos. The worm's massive form was already half submerged in the rising acid, yet it remained frozen, twitching in shock. "Looks like the acid doesn't hurt it at all." "Damn it," Ben thought, narrowing his eyes. Gritting his teeth, he swung the pickaxe down with everything he had. Bang! The sharp edge stuck the worm right into its jaw. Chapter 18. It's working. At that moment, something unexpected happened. A sudden, powerful suction pulled from deep within the worm's gaping maw, dragging everything toward it. Ben's pickaxe struck something hard inside with a deafening clang, the impact reverberating through his entire body. It felt like hitting solid metal. Ben gritted his teeth as a strange vibration rattled through his arms. Before he could react, a message flickered across his vision. "Please upgrade the pickaxe to harvest this material." The momentary shock froze him in place, but for the worm it gave different effect. It regained control of its body, then lashed out with its tail, a blur of motion cutting through the air. Bam! The impact hit Ben like a freight train, sending him flying backward. His vision blurred, and the air was knocked from his lungs as he hurtled through the tunnel. Before he could crash into the hard ground, a sudden gust of wind caught him midair, slowing his momentum just enough to allow him stop at Elvira's side. At the same time, Ben's injured arm was already beginning to heal, the dull ache fading as mobility returned. He flexed his fingers, testing them. "You're too reckless," Elvira scolded, her voice laced with concern. "My beloved, you can't keep fighting like this. Without enough biomass, your regeneration is severely limited." Ben glanced at his system display. "Biomass, 29, don't worry, I've still got enough to get by," he said. It wasn't much, but for wounds like this, it was more than enough to keep him going. He shot a glance at Elvira. "What about you? Do you have enough mana left?" Elvira sighed, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "Not much," she admitted. "I can still cast regular spells, but for something big, like the fusion magic I used to become the king ant? Not a chance." Ben frowned but wasn't surprised. Elvira had pushed herself to the brink, collapsing from mana exhaustion earlier, only to wake up and immediately jump back into casting spells non-stop. If anything, it just proved how much mana she had and her potential as a mage. A normal spellcaster would have been down for good by now. "All right, just do what you can to support me," Ben said. Elvira stared at him in disbelief. "What? You just got smacked down, and now you're going back for more?" Ben didn't answer. Instead, he flowed forward, determination burning in his eyes. After that last clash, and the system notification, an idea had sparked in his mind. He might not be able to harvest whatever was inside the worm, but one thing was clear, the creature couldn't break his pickaxe. The worm lashed out again, its tail cutting through the air with terrifying speed. This time, Ben was ready. He braced himself, raising the pickaxe to absorb the impact. Bam! The force rattled through his arms, but he held firm. Gust! Elvira's voice rang out, and a burst of wind surged from behind him, pushing him forward and keeping him from being knocked back again. Seizing the moment, Ben kicked at the worm's cracked skin with all his strength. Bam! His foot struck home. The worm barely flinched, but Ben felt it, a subtle tremor running through its massive body. His lips curled into a grin. "It's working." What followed was a brawl. The worm attacked in predictable patterns, either with its jaws or sweeping with its tail. Ben learned to read its movements, using the pickaxe to deflect the blows and staying on the offensive. Every time he blocked, he struck back with a kick to the same spot. After few successful hits, he layered his carapace armor onto his legs, shaping it into a sharp, blade-like edge at the tip of his foot for better impact. Meanwhile, Elvira kept the pressure up from behind. She alternated between summoning gusts to aid his movements and launching fireballs or crackling arcs of lightning at the worm's body. The space around them was shrinking rapidly, the worm's digestive fluids creeping ever closer, bubbling ominously just a foot away from their feet. A piercing screech erupted from the worm as it recoiled, writhing in pain. It struggled to retreat, trying to create space in the narrowing tunnel. The spot that Ben kept attacking was now cracked wide open, and from the wound, a thick, gooey black substance oozed out. Seeing the liquid, Ben called, "Elvira. Try igniting that stuff." Without hesitation, Elvira raised her palm, her fingers playing as a fiery magic circle flared into existence before her. Her mana surged through it, crackling with heat as it condensed into a searing spike of fire. Compared to the lance magic she had used against the Ant King, this was a weaker version. Ember spike. Swoosh. The flaming spike shot forward like a bullet, slicing through the thick air and leaving a blazing trail in its wake. The moment it hit the worm, Ben's cursed. Fuck. What happened next was exactly what Ben expected, but far beyond what he had hoped. Boom. The moment Elvira's fiery spike struck the black liquid, it ignited with an explosive force, erupting into a blinding flash of light. Ben instinctively shielded his eyes, staggering backward as a deafening roar filled the confined space. The explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the tunnel. After a few seconds, the deafening explosion faded into silence. Ben slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the lingering brightness. His surroundings had completely changed. The once gross brick walls were now scorched black, the thick, oppressive air replaced by the stench of burnt flesh. Before he could take it all in, Elvira's voice pulled him back. "Thanks, my beloved. I will always believe in you," she said softly, looking up at him with a radiant smile. Ben let out a heavy sigh. He knew she wasn't talking about defeating the worm. During the explosion, without a second thought, he had thrown himself in front of her, shielding her with his body. "I told you, don't overthink it. I just can't have you dying on me." Elvira tilted her head, amusement dancing in her eyes. "You say that, but your actions tell a different story." Ben groaned. "Forget it, there's no..." Before he could finish, she pressed her body closer, placing a hand over his chest. "No excuses, my beloved. Just accept it," she whispered, her tone a mix of gratitude and warmth. Chapter 19, Empyrean Crystal. "Fine, think whatever you want," Ben muttered, changing his focus back to their surroundings. The grotesque wall around them began to collapse, revealing a dim blue light filtering in from above. The digestive liquid was now evaporated, allowing them to land gently on the solid ground. Yet, despite being safe, Elvira still hadn't released her hold on him. Ben glanced down at her, but before he could say anything, more of the worm's crumbling remains peeled away, exposing a breathtaking sight above them, an entire ceiling lined with glowing stalactites, shimmering in the soft blue glow. His gaze swept around the place, wondering what else is there. Then, something caught his eye. A shimmering object floated in the air, its fractured, deformed. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen before, jagged, riddled with cracks, yet somehow still intact while giving out a starry aura. "It's like looking at a star." "Elvira. You seeing this?" That looks like an Empyrean crystal," Elvira said, raising an eyebrow. She finally released her embrace on Ben and stepped toward the floating crystal, her eyes locked on it with fascination. The crystal hovered exactly where the worm had been moments ago. "This thing must have been inside the worm," Ben muttered, recalling the clanging sound from his earlier strike. "So, what's this crystal used for, anyway?" Even without a system notification, he could feel the sheer amount of energy radiating from it. But since his pickaxe couldn't harvest it, he doesn't know the item use. Elvira didn't take her eyes off the crystal as she explained. "Each clan in the higher layers has one of these. They use them to create large-scale barriers, giving their territories the protection they need." "I see," Ben said thoughtfully, watching the faint glow emanating from the cracks. Then, something she'd said earlier nagged at him. "By the way, you mention Aetherian both as a clan and a race sometimes. Does that mean your clan includes multiple races? Or do other clans have Aetherians too?" Elvira nodded, crossing her arms. "Yes. Each race has its own specialty, like the Braccarum, with their brute strength making them excellent fighters, or the Grumlock, whose insane regeneration makes them almost unkillable. Every major clan is made up of different races, playing to their strengths." She shot him a curious look. "Why ask this now?" Ben shrugged, his gaze lingering on the fractured Empyrean crystal. "Just curious. The king ant, the hell worm, and now this crystal." It was all a harsh reminder of how little he truly knew about this world. Even with his system and seemingly cheat-like abilities, there were countless ways he could still end up dead. His priorities shifted in that moment. Before anything else, he needed a safe place, a foundation to learn more about this world before even considering helping Elvira achieve her goals. Elvira sighed, a hint of reluctance in her voice. "It's unfortunate this crystal is broken. Otherwise, we could have built our own clan." Ben blinked. "Wait, what? Is this thing really that good?" Elvira turned to him with a serious expression. "Yes. Even in both of my past lives, I've never found an Empyrean crystal. The barrier it creates doesn't just protect an area, it forms its own domain, allowing you to establish rules within it. Rules? Ben echoed, intrigued. She nodded. Yes. Inside the domain, it's like being a god. For example, you could set a rule where anyone who lies will be struck by lightning, and it will happen. Of course, there are limits. The effect is weaker on those of the owner's bloodline, and it won't work on anyone stronger than you. But for clan management, this crystal is a godlike tool. Ben's mind raced with possibilities. Can you fix it? Elvira shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. No. This thing is beyond our understanding. Honestly, I don't even know what kind of energy is locked inside it. The fact that it was inside a hellworm is baffling in itself. Ben scratched his chin. What if it's produced by the hellworm? All that junk it eats has to go somewhere, right? Maybe this crystal is the result. Elvira's eyes widened with excitement, her face lighting up like a child discovering a new toy. You mean this is man-made? Ben shrugged. It's possible. Elvira's mind raced at the implications. If this crystal could be created, then there had to be a method, lost or forgotten, perhaps, but not beyond reach. If others had made it before, she could figure out a way to craft her own version. That's fascinating, she whispered, eyes gleaming. If we can figure out how to recreate it, imagine what we could achieve. I wonder if this thing is like a diamond. Forming under immense pressure, condensing all the leftover junk until it finally becomes something valuable. Just like how diamonds are really just compressed dirt, practically worthless on their own. Ben let the thought linger, his eyes locked on the fractured Empyrean crystal. Of course, the process must have required an absurd amount of pressure and energy. He recalled an article he'd read once, about how such forces could reduce a dinosaur to mush in seconds. Even steel wouldn't stand a chance under that kind of pressure. He couldn't even begin to imagine how much it would take to form something like this crystal. Clang. Without thinking, Ben swung his pickaxe again, hoping for a different outcome. Please upgrade the pickaxe to harvest this material. The same frustrating message blinked across his vision, and he let out a heavy sigh. Hey. What do you think you're doing? Elvira snapped, stepping closer with an exasperated look. Even if we can't use it to make a clan, it's still an Empyrean crystal. I'm sure we can find some use for it. Ben shrugged, handing the crystal over without a second thought. Then you take it. Elvira's eyes lit up, her excitement barely contained. For real, my beloved? No backsies, you know. Once it's in my hands, it's mine. Chapter 20, checking the old base. Ben rolled his eyes. You always overthink things. I'm not giving it to you, just lending it. Consider it a test subject. Elvira's excited smile quickly turned into a playful pout. Ugh, you're no fun. But her enthusiasm didn't wane for long. With lightning speed, she snatched the crystal and darted off like a child with a new toy. All right. I'm starting now. Ben blinked, momentarily stunned by how quickly she'd switched gears. A chuckle escaped him as he watched her eagerly dive into her examination. So she's the type that goes nuts over experiments. No wonder she's into those Krell. Shaking his head with an amused smile, Ben adjusted his grip on his pickaxe. Well, at least she won't bother me for a while. He then turned his focus back at the surrounding. With the hellworm's body finally reduced to rubble, Ben took a moment to study his surroundings. The ceiling above was adorned with clusters of blue crystal stalactites. Beneath his feet, plain rock stretched in all directions, offering little else of interest, aside from the remnants of the worm's carcass scattered around. Other than these crystals, there's not much here. But this space is perfect for another base. The cavern was massive, with plenty of room to work with. Piles of the hellworm's remains were scattered across the floor, ready to be harvested for biomass. More importantly, the entire area had only one large entrance and exit, clearly carved out by the worm itself. This could work. Ben mused, his mind already forming plans. With his system, sealing off the opening would be easy. He could construct a reinforced gate for controlled access, and even set up a maze on either side to deter intruders. The idea reminded him of the first base, the one he built back in the 6 cartel area. Feeling curious, he accessed his system to check on its current status. Krell Kingdom, Forces, Krell Scout, 2, Ant Soldier, 4, Ant Worker, 22, Stockpile, 242 pieces Red Spotted Mush Tree, 898 pieces Roasted Mush Ball, 18,345 pieces Stone Brick, 12 pieces Stone Tile, 2 pieces Stone Wall, Facility, 1 Kitchen, Barracks, 2 Houses, 2 Warehouses, 1 Junk Storage, Trap, 24 pieces Spike Trap, 43 pieces Boulder Trap. The base is still working. Seems like nothing's wrong. Ben closed his eyes, reaching out through the hive mind, trying to connect with the other ants and assess the situation firsthand. However, after several attempts, he clicked his tongue in frustration. The connection was there, But it was like listening to a radio filled with static. Damn, the distance is too far to get a full picture. Even so, he could still issue commands, though with limited precision. Without hesitation, he instructed the ants to continue maintaining the base and ordered half of them to search for an ant princess. Without his presence, their numbers couldn't grow. Capturing a princess and forcing her to breed more ants was the only viable solution. There's another option to just keep the base like it was, but then in that case there will be no benefit for Ben. As for the Krell scouts, he assigned Airy to guard the base while Aqua explored the tunnel to look for both of them. The Hellworm's massive movements had carved out an extensive tunnel system, and Ben needed to chart a safe path back to his old base. At the same time, he wanted to explore what kind of biomes this new depth had to offer. I should create more Krell scouts to map the area from my position too. But how far down are we, really? The rising temperature gave him a clue. If the heat before had been like a scorching desert, now it was enough to boil water. They were getting closer to the planet's core. If he stayed normal human, he would have been cooked alive without specialized equipment. With the pickaxe in hand, Ben got to work. Bam. 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 Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Grimslate? Curious, Ben opened his inventory. A Grimslate block, type, block, usage, crafting material, building material, understanding, 0.001%, max stack, 9,999, rarity, common, origin, a dense, dark stone found deep underground, often near magma chambers or ancient ruins. Ben sighed, rubbing his forehead. So it's basically like granite, just tougher. It was strong, sure, but breaking it down took multiple strikes. Constructing anything with it would take more effort than he'd hoped. Even if he summoned more Krell scouts, they'd be useless without proper tools. He'd need a complete understanding of Grimslate to make a new type of tools. If only I could upgrade this damn blockify pickaxe. His gaze drifted upward to the glowing stalactites. Does that have mana? He wondered. But they're not the same red gemstones I found before. Could they be a better version? His first instinct was to ask Elvira, but when he glanced at her, he quickly reconsidered. Floating midair, she was deep in concentration, the cracked Empyrean crystal hovering before her. Complicated magic circles shimmered in and out of existence around it, shifting like celestial equations. It looked mesmerizing, almost otherworldly, but Ben knew better. Those are just magical notes. She's probably in deep research mode. No way I'm interrupting her now. With a sigh, he turned his attention to the hellworm's remains scattered around him. Consume. His hand morphed into a gaping maw, eating the worm's flesh, leaving nothing behind. Ding. You obtained 8 units of biomass. Ding. You obtained 12 units of biomass. Ding. You obtained 7 units of biomass. He focused on clearing the remains, stockpiling biomass, so he can manipulate his carapace armor to farm the stalagmite later. Despite the grind, Ben found a certain satisfaction in it. Each bite of the hellworm's remains sent a wave of energy through his body, healing his body and washing away the lingering fatigue from their battle. His body then used the biomass making to completely heal all the damage from last fight. After a full hour using Consume, Ben finally ready to start grinding the stalagmite. There's still many remain of the hellworm left, but he decided to save it for later. Chapter 21, Trying to Fly. 25,884 biomass. Not bad. Now, how should I go about this? Ben glanced up at the crystal formations, tapping his chin thoughtfully. He had a few options. He could manipulate his arm to stretch and reach the stalagmites, but that method wasn't practical. The longer his arm extended, the harder it would be to maintain control. Another option was to lift himself up by creating platforms with his carapace armor, but again, the height was too much, making it inefficient. I wonder, could I create wings? Float up there instead? His thoughts drifted to their last encounter with the hellworm. Without Elvira's help, he would have been done for. The acidic digestive liquid would have melted him down to nothing. A disturbing thought crept into his mind. What if it had actually eaten us? Would it have evolved again? It was unlikely, though. In its long lifespan, the worm must have consumed creatures far stronger than them. If not for the salt, they'd have been doomed. He let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. A creature of that caliber brought down by something as simple as salt. And here I am, a hive sovereign and a twice regressor, barely scraping by. Thinking of how many powerful beings and magical materials the worm had devoured over its lifetime made him sigh. Alright, focus. Getting distracted again. Flying is the real solution here. Ben then started mentally reviewing the different types of wings he knew. Insects have membrane-like wings that beat at incredible speeds, while birds rely on flapping motions powered by their bones. The insect wings seem simpler. Probably easier to replicate. The problem was, his knowledge was basic at best. He understood the general concept, Wings flapped up and down, with insect wings doing so at an almost imperceptible speed. But he lacked the finer details of how they actually worked. Taking a deep breath, he channeled his biomass, feeling the familiar surge of energy flow through him. His back tingled as the carapace armor shifted, reshaping itself. Slowly, a pair of translucent, insect-like wings emerged. Ben flexed his back muscles, feeling the newly formed wings twitch in response. Taking a deep breath, he focused on moving them the way he imagined an insect would, fast, steady beats. Buzz. The wings flapped, sending a small burst of air beneath him. Excitement bubbled inside him, but before he could celebrate, bam! He tilted awkwardly to the side, crashing onto the rocky floor with a heavy thud. Dust scattered around him as he groaned, pushing himself up. Okay. Not as easy as I thought. He dusted himself off and adjusted the wings, concentrating on their movements again. This time, he tried controlling each wing separately, hoping to balance himself better. Buzz buzz. Another attempt. For a split second, he felt his body lift an inch off the ground, only to immediately spiral sideways, his left wing flapping harder than the right. He hit the ground again, harder this time. Damn it. Ben muttered, rubbing his aching side. Despite the failure, he wasn't about to give up. He took a moment to reassess the problem. If I can't control the speed equally, maybe I need to work on my coordination first. He decided to experiment step by step. First, he slowed the wing beats to a manageable pace, flapping them in slow, deliberate motions, just enough to feel the lift without losing control. He tried pushing off with his legs first, letting the wings provide additional lift instead of relying on them entirely. Buzz. Buzz. He felt himself hover, barely, shakily, but it was progress. Encouraged, he adjusted his posture, spreading his arms out for balance. The lift was uneven, shaky, but he managed to stay airborne for a few more seconds before wobbling and fall again. Alright, better. Now I need speed control. Next, he experimented with adjusting the angle of his wings. He tilted them slightly forward, then backward, attempting to find the right balance between speed and control. The first few tries ended with him either spinning in circles or being flung backward. After several frustrating attempts, Ben finally found a sweet spot, his wings buzzing steadily, his feet gradually lifting off the ground without a chaotic spinning from before. His body hovered a few feet above the rocky floor, swaying slightly but holding steady. The buzzing sound spread through the cavern, loud enough to make his ears ring. Way too loud. But at least it works now. Buzz. Buzz. Ben slowly ascended toward the glowing crystal stalactites, with painstaking effort. Seconds dragged into minutes, and frustration gnawed at him. This is taking forever. Fuck it. With an irritated grunt, he pushed his wings to their limit, increasing their speed. Bzzzzzzz. The sound roared through the cavern, echoing off the rock walls like a swarm of angry hornets. The sheer volume was deafening, and the massive, empty tunnel only amplified the noise further, making it almost unbearable. Ben grimaced. If I had a normal glass here, it'd probably shatter from the vibrations alone. Despite the relentless buzzing, Elvira remained completely unfazed, hovering midair, her focus locked onto the Empyrean crystal. She's very focused completely in her own world. Bam. 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 Reaching the crystal, Ben started using his pickaxe. Each strike chipping away at the crystal. Thankfully, it wasn't nearly as tough as the Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a Elder Gleam. A Elder Gleam block, type, block, usage, crafting material, building material, lighting material, understanding, 0.001%, max stack, 9,999, rarity, uncommon, origin, a luminescent rock that emits a soft blue glow, found in ancient caverns and sacred groves. It remains illuminated as long as it is infused with mana, making it an ideal source of natural lighting for enchanted dwellings. Damn it, it's not a mana crystal. But it does say it contains mana. Can I absorb it? Ben furrowed his brows, gripping the Elder Gleam shard as he closed his eyes and focused. He tried to draw the energy into himself, willing it to flow through his body. Nothing happened. Frustrated, he opened one eye and muttered, "Hey, system, can I absorb this or not?" Ben's eye twitched. Seriously? You can't just give me a simple yes or no? How hard is that? Still, no response. His annoyance flared. Fine. You wanna act like you can't answer? Do whatever the hell you want. He huffed, shoving the crystal back into his inventory. Shaking his head, he looked down at the rocky ground below. Guess I'll focus on the Grimslate for now. Chapter 22, Elvira's experiment. The buzzing sound in the tunnel faded, replaced by the sound of clanging. Clang. 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 The metallic clangs became a symphony of sorts as Ben began humming another song to pass the time. Despite the new form he had taken, The grinding process remained just as monotonous and boring as ever. Swinging his pickaxe over and over again, he mined the Grimslate blocks, carving out space, and trying to get the recipes he needed. If only I could multiply this pickaxe, Ben thought with annoyance. The repetition was wearing on him, and he struggled to keep his focus on the task. With his ability, he could create multiple arms, but multiplying the artifact itself was impossible. Using his arms to simply break through the blocks wasn't effective either. It would only damage the blocks without unlocking the necessary understanding. Once I get this, I can craft a proper Grimslate pickaxe and start creating Krell to do the work for me. The sound of the pickaxe striking the stone continued, and the system notifications filled his mind. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. 258 pieces of Grimslate, understanding 0.258%. While Ben busy with the boring grind, Elvira was having quite the opposite experience. She was having fun immersed in studying the Empyrean crystal. In the past, access to this kind of crystal had been reserved only for the clan leader. If only I had this access in my past life, things would have turned out so differently. Those bastard. Anger flared in her gaze, but it quickly disappeared, replaced with a heavy sigh. Forget it, this time it will be different. Elvira continued experimenting. She studied the energy, its flow and strength. Then a realization came to her: the crack on the crystal is leaking energy. She then started taking out some object from her storage. Each item will certainly make Ben complain. If you have that, why don't you tell me? I can use more mana. But in her defense, this kind of items is limited, and if Ben absorb it, the item will turn to dust. So instead she preferred to keep it as material for future use. Elvira then tried to utilize it to patch the crack. Bam. Unfortunately, the result is the material turn into dust. I don't have the materials to contain this energy. It'll either explode or the crack will just get worse. Her fingers traced the edges of the crack, frustration creeping into her thoughts. What a waste. If I could just use this energy. It feels like a higher quality than mana. The energy inside the crystal was too strong. She needed something that could contain that power, something strong enough to hold it in place without collapsing under the pressure. Elvira's brow furrowed in concentration as she shaped another magic circle in front of her. But just like the material, as soon as she tried to channel energy into it, the circle trembled violently before shattering into nothing. Is this thing just useless? Frustration simmered in her heart, but she refused to give up. I don't believe I can't find a way to use it. There has to be something. Her finger began to move again, forming another circle. As it flickered to life, she closed her eyes and murmured softly. Library of Memories. Immediately, the world around her shifted. In her mind's, a vast library materialized, rows upon rows of towering bookshelves stretching far beyond her sight. She walked forward, her gaze scanning the endless collection. Empyrean crystal. At her spoken words, the books began to stir. The shelves seemed to vibrate slightly before they started shifting, books sliding out of their places and rearranging themselves. The shelves themselves moved, parting to make room for the ones they had selected. One by one, the books gathered into a single row, then slid down the aisle toward her. As the final book slid into place, a cupboard at the end of the row clicked open. The cupboard itself seemed to shift, its doors creaking forward to present the selected book. This is less than I thought. Elvira thought, staring at the single book that lay before her. This library, a culmination of knowledge gathered over 2 lifetimes, and yet there was only one book to show for it. Her fingers hovered over the book's hardcover, tracing the texture. Slowly, she opened it. The moment she did, her surroundings began to shift once again. The familiar cave walls dissolved, replaced by the cool, polished surfaces of a study room. The walls were carved from a marble-like material that gave the space a luxurious feel. The furniture, crafted from wood, giving out a warm atmosphere. At the center of it all, a young girl with long autumn hair sat at a desk, her red eyes darting between the large magic tome spread open before her. Elvira's gaze softened as she recognized herself in the child's curious expression. The young Elvira, eyes wide with wonder, raised her hand and asked, "Teacher, is there any other source of energy besides mana?" The elderly man seated beside her smiled warmly. His features were etched with years of wisdom, and his eyes twinkled with amusement at her relentless curiosity. "Mana, child," he began, his voice soft but steady, "is already one of the strongest sources of energy we know. There's still so much about it that we don't understand. We've only begun to scratch the surface of its true power." Young Elvira pouted slightly, clearly unsatisfied with the answer. Her red eyes widened, and she leaned in closer, giving the elder man an almost pleading look. "But, is there anything else?" The older man chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, you're a royalty. At some point, you'll hear this. But remember, don't tell anyone I told you this, I don't want to get into trouble." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. There's also something called the Empyrean Crystal. It's the source of energy that powers our entire clan. Make sure we can live safely. It's incredibly powerful, more so than mana in some ways. Young Elvira's eyes lit up with even more curiosity. How does it work? I don't know how it works, only that it does. I've heard rumors that we hire specialized people to maintain and harness the crystal's power. They're called magus. His voice lowered even further. But honestly, it's better if you avoid them, Elvira. Chapter 23, Empyrean Pickaxe. The scene froze in place, and Elvira locked her gaze onto the older man. Master Arthur. She whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Her eyes turned glossy, but she quickly wiped it away before it could fall. The scenery dissolved into darkness once more. As she opened her eyes, she muttered to herself, to think I forgot about this. Those magus. Master was right, they're a huge problem. Her expression darkened, anger flickering in her gaze like a smoldering ember. She looked down at the cracked Empyrean crystal in her hands, confusion clouding her thoughts. Holding it felt like having $1 billion sitting in your bank account, yet utterly useless because you couldn't spend a single cent. And worse, it was dwindling, slowly eaten away by inflation. Clang. Clang. The sound of Ben's pickaxe striking Grimslate snapped her out of her thoughts. Looking at the pickaxe idea come to Elvira's mind. Floating toward him with the Empyrean crystal trailing behind her, she called out, "My beloved, are you busy?" Ben's lips twitched, his pickaxe pausing mid-swing. "Can't you see?" He shot her a tired glance before adding, "What about you? Finished with your little experiment yet?" Elvira sighed. "Not exactly. I can't find a good way to use this crystal. Normal objects can't contain its power, it's too much. But then, I thought of your pickaxe." She pointed at it. "It's a traveler's artifact. As far as I know, those things are indestructible. Maybe it can absorb the energy." Ben glanced at the crystal, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "I still haven't unlocked the upgrade function, but logically, wouldn't the system just need energy to trigger it?" He was sure the system could handle it, if it wanted to. But since it hadn't given him any guidance so far, he doubted it would be that simple. Still, it was worth a shot. "Hey system, can I do that?" Ben asked in his mind. Silence. His lips curled into a smirk. "Figures. Silent treatment again, huh? Think I'll give up that easily?" Turning back to Elvira, he nodded. "Go ahead. Try infusing the energy into my pickaxe." Elvira raised her hands. Without another word, magic circles began forming in the air. Just as the final glyph started to take shape, a sudden notification flashed across Ben's vision, making him frown. "Stop. You'll regret it if you do that." Ben's eyes narrowed. "So you can talk? And you think I'll just believe you?" A grin tugged at his lips. "Too late, buddy." He said nothing and let Elvira finish her work. Her mana guided the crystal's energy, pouring it toward the pickaxe. The moment it touched, the pickaxe's dull surface ignited with a brilliant golden glow. It began to vibrate, sending out a ringing sound, like a chorus of tiny bells chiming in harmony. The sound grew louder, almost like a bird chirping in delight. Then, without warning, a powerful suction force burst from the pickaxe. Elvira gasped as the cracks on the Empyrean crystal widened, glowing brighter. The energy within it surged uncontrollably, spiraling toward the artifact in a blinding swirl of light. "You're doomed." Ben's eyes twitched at the sudden notification, but he didn't stop. "You and your cryptic messages. If you don't explain things properly, how am I supposed to know what's going on? It's not that I don't want to, but I can't. There are limitations placed on me, ones that should be gradually lifted as you level up. But you keep finding ways to leap past those restrictions." Ben smirked. "So what you're saying is, I'm too good?" "No, I'm saying you're dangerously reckless." His grin widened, but before he could reply, the golden light from the pickaxe flared even brighter, illuminating the entire cavern like a miniature sun. The Empyrean crystal's cracks deepened, and the tunnel walls began to tremble. "Isn't that proof you can bend the rules a little? You're already talking to me, after all." The system's response came after a brief pause. "Yes. But I don't know why. The restrictions loosened when you became a hive sovereign." Ben's brows furrowed. "Then explain it to me now, why the silence all of a sudden? There's too much information, and we're running out of time. You're reckless, and honestly, I don't understand why someone like you was chosen in the first place." Ben rolled his eyes. "What? Why no time? You're stuck with me, aren't you? The energy flow is too intense. I'll likely have to enter hibernation soon to process everything and complete an update." Before Ben could fully react, his mind was bombarded with a flood of fragmented information. His head throbbed under the sheer weight of it all. But just as suddenly as it came, the stream of knowledge was cut off. The pickaxe pulsed one last time, the golden glow surging into a brilliant burst before finally settling. Crack. The blade of the pickaxe shattered, revealing a new surface. It gleamed with a mesmerizing rainbow hue, shifting colors depending on the angle it was viewed from. Ben could feel a surge of strength coming from the pickaxe. Blockify pickaxe has been upgraded. Blockify pickaxe, type, tool type weapon, rarity, divine, growth, durability, infinite, damage, 100, melee, ability, send you flying, knockback, 10, critical strike chance, 14%, blockify, power, 5, limitations, cannot be used on living beings, equipment, or liquids, magic destroyer, effect, when blockify is used against a magic or spell, it consumes 10% of the calculated mana required for that attack. Tooltip, a strange power lies within, turning nearly anything into blocks, but not without a cost. Seeing the updated Ben should feel exhilarated, but compared to information he just learned, this is nothing. Is something wrong? Shouldn't you feel happy with the upgraded artifact? Seem we need to quickly improve the base and do thing faster, we just got a new enemy. What you mean? Elvira asked, tilting her head in confusion. Give me a minute. Ben replied as he sat on the ground trying to filter the information. Meanwhile, at undisclosed location, on a majestic grand hall, a figure with scar on his face was walking with his aide, his heavy armor clanging every time he took a step. On his back a huge sword could be seen. Suddenly he stopped, then turned his gaze toward the floor. Is something happened, Sir Alexander? Just another pest, informed the Magus. Yes, sir. The person that walking behind him replied with a bow, then quickly leave the area. Chapter 24, Incoming Enemy. Back in the tunnel, Ben opened his eyes and let out a heavy sigh. The flood of information had finally settled, leaving his mind clearer but still burdened by unanswered questions. Elvira hovered nearby, her gaze filled with worry. What's going on, my beloved? You're scaring me. I've never seen you like this, not even when we were in danger. Ben ran a hand through his hair, his voice laced with frustration. I don't have all the answers yet, but I've got a few things I know for sure. First, travelers are sent here with a purpose. What that purpose is, I don't know. Second, the stronger we get, the more we'll learn. At some point, it'll all become clear to us. Elvira's eyes widened as realization dawned on her. No wonder travelers rarely settle in one place. And now that I think about it, I've never seen more than 3 travelers working together. Does that mean travelers gain something by defeating each other? Ben nodded. I'm not clear on the exact benefit, but I know for sure we can take their artifacts. Elvira frowned, her voice skeptical. You're certain? I've never heard of this before. They're hiding it. No question about that. And it doesn't stop there. Ben's tone darkened, his expression growing serious. We also have enemies, beings that will hunt us down once we reach a certain level. Elvira's face turned grave. Enemies? She had a sinking feeling that Ben has already reached that threshold. Not much to go on, but they're strong. Extremely strong. Do you have any idea what faction could fit that description? Something strong and mysterious. Elvira's brows furrowed as she considered his words. Strong and mysterious. Her mind raced through the factions she knew, discarding those that were too public or lacked the strength to pose a threat to travelers. After a moment, she said, the only ones that come to mind are the Magus. Other than them, there are powerful clans, but they're all well known and not exactly mysterious. Magus, huh? Ben murmured. He didn't press further, noticing the uncertainty in her expression. Clearly, even Elvira didn't know much about the Magus. For him it's better to not know rather than speculate based on uncertain information. Elvira's tone softened. So, what's your plan now? First, we finish clearing this area and turn it into our second base. I've already ordered the Krell scouts to maintain the first one. You mean Eri and Aqua? Who else? Anyway, I had planned to find an ant princess to farm biomass, but with all the remains of the worm here, we've got more than enough to build an army. Elvira's eyes lit up with excitement. You're going to create a new type, aren't you? We need proper workers. Give them 4 arms and 4 legs. Ben raised an eyebrow. 4 arms, I get. But why 4 legs? It'll increase their speed. Don't you see how massive this tunnel is? You'll need them to gather all the worm's remains into one spot. Elvira spread her mana, using it as a detection tool. This area is at least 1,000 blocks wide and tall. As for the length. She hesitated, then added, gods know how long the worm was before it shrank into that thing. She paused, then tilted her head, her expression curious. By the way, can you explain to me how Salt managed to destroy that worm? I still can't wrap my head around it. How could such a creature be defeated by something like that? Ben chuckled softly. It's complicated, but basically, Salt made the worm's body shrivel and weaken. That's why its skin cracked. Honestly, though, I feel like the creator of that thing built in the weakness on purpose. Otherwise, I can't imagine what kind of calamity it'd be if it went out of control. We barely survived one, who knows how many more of those things might exist. Ben raised his newly upgraded pickaxe, its rainbow-like sheen gleaming in the dim light. Clang! The pickaxe struck the Grimslate block, shattering it with a single hit. A grin spread across Ben's face. This was power. Elvira stayed by his side this time, watching intently as he worked. Ben caught her staring and raised an eyebrow. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I don't have anything else to do," Elvira admitted with a small shrug. "And watching your artifact work. It's fascinating." Ben smirked, seeing through her curiosity. "You're trying to figure out how it works, aren't you?" Elvira didn't deny it, her eyes glinting with excitement. "I am, but I haven't figured anything out yet. At first glance, it just looks like a normal item. Even when I channel mana into it, I only get faint traces of energy from the Empyrean crystal, and it keeps dissipating. It's strange. This reminds me of before when." Her words trailed off, and Ben's gaze darkened slightly. "You mean when you tore my arm off?" Elvira's cheeks puffed into a pout, her frustration evident. "How many times do I have to say I'm sorry? Can you let it go already?" Ben's voice was calm, but there was a faint edge to it. "I don't know how Etherians handle things, but as a human, we don't exactly forget when someone tears off our arm." Elvira crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. "But you're not human anymore, are you?" That comment hit Ben harder than he expected. He froze for a moment, then let out a long sigh. "Fair enough," he muttered, deciding it wasn't worth pressing the matter further. He shifted the conversation instead. "I saw what you were working on earlier. Do you have any other magic that might help us? Something defensive would be good. We can't rely on barriers like those big clans you talked about, but having some protection would make me feel a lot better." Elvira tapped her chin, giving him a thoughtful look. "What kind of defense are you thinking about?" Chapter 25, Combining Ideas. "An illusion barrier would be great," Ben said after a moment. "Something to confuse intruders. If you can make it spread smoke or fog, that'd be even better. Or better yet, poison." Elvira frowned slightly. "Poison? Won't that be dangerous for us too?" "Not if we're smart about it," Ben replied. "We don't need to spread it everywhere. The poison should only activate when we have intruders. We can mix it with the fog to make it harder for them to realize what's happening." "How potent do you want it?" "It'd be best if it could kill anyone weaker than me instantly while someone at my level takes a few minutes." Ben knew that with his absurd regeneration rate, a poison strong enough to kill him would have to destroy all his cells at once. If even a handful survived for a moment, they'd have enough time to regenerate, meaning he'd live. But there was no way Elvira had a method like that. If she did, they wouldn't have struggled so much against the Hellworm. But Elvira's next word surprised him. "Honestly, I can make something like that, if I had the right materials. But for now, the best I can do is a paralyzing effect for beings that strong, and at best, it'd last a second." "What? You can actually make something like that? What materials do you need?" "It takes many, but the main ones are extremely rare. Nether sting venom, a drop of void serpent's heart blood, and a fully bloomed lunacry lotus. Have you ever seen any of them?" "Only nether sting venom. It's extracted from Duskran scorpions found in the dead ruins. That venom is more like a curse than a poison, it eats away at the target's life essence. As for the others, they're practically myths. The void serpent is said to appear only when chaos unfolds. And the last one, the lunacry lotus, supposedly grows only in places where moonlight can reach." "This place has moonlight?" Ben asked, intrigued. "If that were true, then somewhere down here, a tunnel must lead directly to the surface." "That's what makes it feel like a myth," Elvira said, shaking her head. "As far as I know, we don't have anything like that down here. No one's ever seen the surface, not in my lifetime, not in anyone's." "How about your planet?" She paused, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. "I've only read about it in books, old stories passed down through generations. But that's all they are. Stories. On my world, moonlight is just normal. It's there every night. No one really thinks much about it." Elvira's gaze lingered on the dim glow of the crystals above. "I really wonder what the vast sky looks like." Ben let out a small hum, thinking. "Hard to say, honestly. It's nothing special if you grew up with it. But a lot of people from my world would pay a ton of money just to come to a place like this. Seeing all these glowing crystals. Some would even say it's worth dying for." Elvira turned to him, frowning. "Worth dying for? Just for a view?" Ben let out a dry chuckle. He didn't personally know anyone who had done it, but he had seen far too many video of people dying while caving or climbing, all for the sake of chasing a breathtaking view. Well, people have different hobbies. Anyway, how does the paralyzing poison work? Elvira pointed upward. That crystal, I can use it to create fog-like particles that react to my mana signature. Once triggered, they explode in a burst of bright light, blinding everyone in the area. Ben raised a brow. Blinding? Like a flashbang? Elvira tilted her head. It doesn't just affect sight. It disrupts all sensory perception. You wouldn't be able to hear, feel, or even sense mana properly. Ben gave the crystal a thoughtful look. So, you can turn these elder gleams into a weapon? Elvira blinked. Elder gleam. She frowned, glancing at the crystal again. I usually just call them gleam crystals. She spread her mana and began probing the crystal, her curiosity piqued. It felt different. She had always used gleam crystals as a medium for storing her magic, but the process was never simple. The crystal had to be processed first, depending on the spell she wanted to imbue. For example, if she wanted to store fire magic, she had to heat it up until it turned to liquid, then infuse it with mana before it cooled and hardened again. Ben crossed his arms. So that's a yes. What exactly can you make with it? Elvira's eyes gleamed with excitement as she began listing off various possibilities, all while continuing to probe the crystal. The more she examined it, the more convinced she became. This material was better than what she usually used. Normally, imbuing magic into a crystal caused a loss in effectiveness, about 20% degradation, sometimes more depending on the complexity of the spell and the skill of the caster. With her ability, she could push effectiveness up to 90%, a number already considered extremely high. But this crystal, it felt like she could push even further. The thought ignited a spark inside her, a desire to experiment. Ben listened to everything she had to say before start chiming and giving out his own ideas. Each one make Elvira's excitement grew. Ben's suggestions gave her ideas she never would have considered on her own. Her knowledge was deeply rooted in mana manipulation, but Ben came from a world where education covered all subjects, even if most people ended up in miserable jobs that barely used it. What would a construction worker use knowledge of virus biology for? Ben always wondered about this, but now it gave him understanding on how things react to each other, allowing him to give suggestion on idea that can turn into new spell. Time passed on. Elvira floated high inspecting the Elder Gleam crystal while Ben started digging creating area for Elvira's lab and Elder Gleam production. Chapter 26, Designing the Base. Congratulations, you have completely understood Grimslate block. Crafting feature has been updated. You can now craft items with Grimslate as material. The limit is your own imagination. Ben plopped down onto the smooth ground, letting out a deep breath of relief as he stored his pickaxe back into his inventory. Finally, he mumbled, his lips curling into a grin. The first grind was a boring, repetitive slog, but now came the fun part, designing the entire base and making it work. He laid his head on the floor, letting his thoughts run wild. This should be like the old base, but this time, I've got tons of verticality to use. 1,000 blocks tall, that was like staring up at a skyscraper from the ground floor all the way to the peak. The top probably has around 250 blocks less in width. Leaving that empty would be a waste of space. The tunnel, carved out by the worm's body, had a circular formation. The 1,000 width section Elvira mentioned was in the middle, gradually shrinking all the way down to 750 in width. A loud buzzing sound echoed through the tunnel once more. Floating towards the center, Ben started sketching out the base in his mind. The entire area spanned 1,000 blocks in width and 750 in length. He planned to step it down gradually, 125 blocks in length total, resulting in a pyramid-like structure with a massive surface area at the top. Each step varied in depth, ranging from 3 to 5 blocks. His plan? A labyrinth on both ends, while the space under it served as hidden pathways for ambush strategies. If needed, he could move quickly beneath the surface. He also intended to install pipes to release Elder Gleam dust and set up other traps. Efficient logistics were another priority. He needed a system for moving things between different areas. It would be a complicated network of pathways, but first, he had to finalize the base's design. This time, Ben wanted to create a true stronghold. I could flood the lower section with water, turning it into an underwater area. That way, I could raise fish for food and other uses. And for additional space, I should expand upward. Even if I only make each floor 10 blocks tall, I could easily fit 100 floors. Maybe I'll need to make them taller. After seeing the size of the hellworm, Ben was convinced that at some point, he could create a massive creature, maybe not quite that size, but still something colossal. His imagination ran wild. If he could create a hellworm-sized beast, he'd gladly relocate his base inside its stomach, turning it into a mobile fortress. With how versatile the creature creation system was, he knew it was possible, if he had the right materials and parts. Now, for materials. By my rough estimate, Just covering this space alone would take at least 800,000 blocks. The sheer number made him let out a heavy sigh. Still, every project had to start somewhere. Alright, let's get to work. Floating toward the side of the tunnel, Ben began laying the foundation of what he decided to call the ground floor. After placing a single block, Ben landed on it. Alright, one block at a time. He placed a few blocks to his left and right before moving forward again. Once he finished a 5-meter in width and 5-meter in height area, he sat cross-legged and looked down. The ground floor was the middle layer, spanning 1,000 blocks in width. Below, there was a vast drop, 499 blocks straight down. A question popped into Ben's mind. Now, does my building system defy gravity or not? If not, I don't think I can fill all these layers without making columns to hold everything in place. To test his theory, he started placing blocks in a straight line, pushing as far as possible. Alright, this will be the 11th block. The moment he set it down, bam! A loud crash echoed through the tunnel. Ben gulped, looking downward. Fuck. It didn't even hold, just magically fell straight down. My beloved. Did something happen? Hearing a loud sound, Elvira quickly flew to his side, thinking there had been an attack or an accident. But when she saw Ben just standing there, gazing downward with a bewildered look, she sighed in relief. Following his gaze, she let out a soft chuckle. I didn't do it on purpose, Ben said before she could say a word. Looks like I'll need to build a bunch of pillars to support this layer. Why not just start from the bottom instead? No, I want to fill the lower area with water. This much? Where exactly are you planning to get all that water from? I'll find some underground lakes and move everything here. But, my beloved, didn't you say we're in a hurry? I'm not worried. There's plenty of material everywhere. We can just make 100 workers and build everything fast. You know, you'd probably get more stability if you turn these blocks into floors, like at the first base. No, I want to use these as a foundation, to make sure it's hard to dig through. I'll put the floors on top of this block. I see. Meanwhile, as Ben and Elvira were busy with their base, somewhere at the same depth, a huge fire roared inside a massive dome. In the center, the colossal fire burned bright like a sun, casting long shadows on the cavern walls. Surrounding it stood a gathering of humanoid figures, beings of stone, their bodies hardened like obsidian, with pairs of molten eyes burning like embers and metallic hair reflecting the flickering flames. They moved in unison, their deep voices chanting an ancient ritual. Praise the eternal flame. Prophet fire, the Ashborn will be born. One of the figures stepped forward, his heavy step echoing across the floor as he approached the flame. The fire crackled and roared, as he took the first step into the sacred blaze. Arg! A scream tore through the air as the flame seared into his very being, etching its power into his body. His molten eyes flared brighter, his stone form shifting as the fire reshaped him. The others raised their hands toward the sky, their voices merging into a deafening chorus. Praise the eternal flame. Praise the Ash King. Chapter 27. The Nephirid. Beside the flame stood a throne, crafted from some strange material that pulsed with an eerie orange and blue bioluminescent glow. Seated upon it was a figure, taller, more muscular than the others, yet sharing the same molten eyes. Perched atop his head was a black crown, dark as charcoal, without a single gem or decoration. His gaze, full of disinterest, swept over the one attempting to be reborn in the fire. So much festivity. For nothing, he muttered. I'm sorry, my king, but we need this to keep morale high, said the figure standing beside the throne. You think I don't know that? The Ash King's voice carried a slow, simmering heat. I wouldn't be here otherwise. If only we could do as we pleased. Those damned bastards. They think they can order us Nephirid around as they wish. About that, my king, the advisor hesitated, then continued, one of them contacted us. They claim they'll lift the restrictions on us. If we get them something they want. The Ash King's molten gaze flickered. What do you mean? Explain. They're searching for a traveler. They say there's one in our depths. If we capture it alive before their Magus arrives, will they really keep their word? The Ash King let out a dry, humorless chuckle. I don't believe them. Have you already forgotten what they did to us? Of course not, my king. Ben and Elvira had no idea. They had fallen all the way down, past the known depths, into Layer 12, an uncharted domain where the Nephirid ruled. Yet even here, the Nephirid were far from their former glory. If anything, they were at their weakest. All thanks to the faction the Ash King so bitterly called bastards. The Ash King glanced at the back of his hand. A white sigil lay there, its glow faint, dimmed nearly to nothing. He scoffed. If that's all they offer, then we have no reason to obey. The seal will be removed soon anyway. But that doesn't mean we do nothing. His gaze turned sharp. Send a squadron. Kill the Magus. Capture them alive if possible. The advisor gave a deep bow. And the traveler? The Ash King's eyes settled on the figure inside the flame. A slow smirk spread across his face. Use him for the trial of the warrior. The advisor sucked in a sharp breath. To become a full-fledged Ashborn, one had to pass 2 rituals. The first, baptism of fire, where the body was reforged in primordial flame, granting immunity to fire and creating one's molten core. The second and final step, trial of the warrior, where the initiate had to hunt a powerful enemy and feed them to their molten core, birthing their own living weapon. My king, are you certain? The advisor hesitated. I thought you would at least capture him. Feeding a traveler's artifact to the molten core won't necessarily pass on its. His words cut off as the Ash King's burning gaze turned to him, searing with quiet fury. Count yourself lucky, the Ash King said, voice like embers beneath the wind. The kingdom has too few skilled people left. If this were the past, I would have cut your neck already. His molten fingers curled into a fist. You think I don't know something so basic? This is the last time I'll explain myself. Taming a traveler is nearly impossible. Cooperating with one is even more dangerous in our situation. It's better to crush them early. Though. I do wonder how he got past the barrier at layer 10. The Ash King's molten eyes flickered once more. Not that it matters. The risk isn't worth it. The vassal already keep making up noise. If they have a change, I'm sure they'll attack. The advisor clenched his jaw. He still wanted to object. If the traveler had truly broken through the barrier with brute force, then the newborn Ashborn would stand no chance. But he knew better than to push further. I'm sorry. You're on your own, driven. Meanwhile, the platform Ben made had completely transformed. It had grown in size to a 10-meter in width and 15-meter in height block area, now covered with a smooth floor. Tall walls had been constructed, creating 8-meter in width and 8-meter in height area, and he placed the final block, sealing off the ceiling. The structure was basic, a plain square building with no decorations yet. But for now, it was more than enough. He could always add more details later when he had the time. The building had 2 entrances for now, one was a trapdoor on the ceiling, and the other was a normal doorway. He planned to expand the structure further, eventually adding an entrance to an underground area. Other than the trapdoor, the ceiling also had multiple openings for Elder Gleam crystals. It was a simple system. Elvira just needed to drop the crystal through one of the openings, and it would fall straight into a crate that Ben had set up below. Inside the building, several weird-looking devices had been installed. The first one was 2 blocks wide and 3 blocks tall, a simple mechanism designed to take crystals from storage on one side and grind them using the gears inside. Right now, the gears had to be turned manually, meaning Ben would need to assign a few workers to help Elvira with her work. She could use magic to operate the machine, but it wouldn't be efficient. Her mana was better spent elsewhere, like finishing the products or doing things that couldn't be replaced yet, such as igniting flames hot enough to melt Elder Gleam dust. Another machine functioned like a furnace, designed to make it easier for Elvira to concentrate her flames, raising the heat exponentially. The last machine wasn't finished yet. It was a simple logistics device, something that would allow Elvira to send finished traps directly to the storage area. This way, workers wouldn't need to keep coming in and out of her lab. Ben still needed to build the storage building. There were also multiple desks and simple furniture inside, giving Elvira a place to take breaks or do research. All right, Ben muttered, stretching his arms. Next, I will need to create the worker. Chapter 28, New Krell Type. The creature creation system appeared in front of Ben's eyes. Creature type. Insectoid. Not like I have much choice. Size. Considering the space I got, I'll go with large. Physical features. 4 arms, 4 legs, compound eyes, and jaw. As for intelligence, animal level should be enough. They just need to do simple work anyway. Processing. Making final adjustments and calculating final cost. Complexity, 10, cost, 180 mana, 210 biomass, register as Krell worker, Ben muttered, sliding the screen aside and moving on. He designed 2 more types. The first, Krell cargo, was similar to the worker but with a medium-sized body. The second, Krell soldier, had a large body like the worker but was reinforced with enhanced carapace, a body part he got from the Ant King. Processing. Making final adjustments and calculating final cost. Krell cargo, complexity, 10, cost, 120 mana, 140 biomass, Krell soldier, complexity, 13, cost, 276 mana, 320 biomass. Ben's brows furrowed as he read the mana cost. He had completely overlooked that huge limitation. Biomass wasn't a problem. Mana? Yeah, that was a different story. Mana, 124 out of 250, even after upgrading the pickaxe, My mana capacity didn't increase at all. Is this because the system is still hibernating? Ben thought, rubbing his chin. Since the artifact was linked to him, he should be growing stronger as it became more powerful. Otherwise, how was he supposed to advance? Just by collecting parts from consuming creatures? Ben let out a heavy sigh. Hope it doesn't work like that. Otherwise, I'll have a hard time getting stronger. Shaking off the thought, he climbed up through the trapdoor in the ceiling and found Elvira still busy harvesting crystals. Her method was unique. First, she blasted them with scorching flames until they turned bright orange. Then, with a sharp slash of wind magic, she cut them down and used telekinesis to gather everything in one spot. It was slow, but efficient. Each time she did it, she harvested tons of crystal. A huge pile had already formed, enough to easily fill a few trucks. Elvira, you can put it all down now. Your lab's ready, Ben called out. Elvira's eyes lit up at his words. With a flick of her hand, the massive pile of crystals floated into neat, long lines, then shot toward her lab, following the mechanism Ben built. Watching the process, Ben asked, "How fast can you make those things fly?" "Depends on the size and weight," she replied. Ben hummed in thought, then crafted a bullet, a small, sharp drill head projectile, about 5 centimeters long. It had a tapered tip and a spiral body like a drill. He placed it on his palm. "Try shooting this as fast as you can." Elvira immediately got what he was thinking. Using magic to launch projectiles wasn't new, some species even used bows as their main weapon. But for a mage, shooting physical objects with magic was inefficient. It was way cheaper to just fire arrows from a bow instead of burning mana for each attack. Still, she didn't complain. She pointed her finger at the bullet. It floated, then, swoosh. Bam. The bullet pierced through the air, slamming into the tunnel wall in no time. Ben narrowed his eyes, inspecting the result. The bullet dug in slightly, then shattered into pieces. "Try again, Elvira. This time, make it spin before shooting it." "Spin first?" Elvira frowned, not understanding what Ben was trying to achieve. The bullet floated up again, but this time, she made it spin as fast as possible, creating a high-pitched whizzing sound before, bam. She launched it again. This time, the bullet pierced through 3 stone blocks before finally stopping. "That's good." Ben's eyes lit up. "Elvira, if we mix it with Elder Gleam Crystal, one with an explosive effect, the result will be even better." His mind was already busy, thinking about creating a gun that could fire these bullets. Unfortunately, he had no real knowledge of gun making. If he tried now, it would take endless trial and error, something he didn't have time for. But Elvira didn't look excited. A one-time use object imbued with magic is called a talisman. But it doesn't work on any object. The bullet is too small. We need something larger to store the magic properly. And adjusting the trigger to make sure it doesn't react to high-speed movement will cost more mana and space. "I see. Oh well, not like we can use it now anyway." There were too many things he needed to make first. The gun itself, for one. As for size, he could work around that by using something bigger, like a cannon. The shells would be larger, so it wouldn't be a problem. "Anything else?" "If not, I want to start working," Elvira said, clearly more excited about testing the Elder Gleam Crystal's full potential than whatever idea Ben was cooking up. "One more thing, can you share some of your mana? I need to create some workers, logistics, and soldiers." Elvira hesitated for a moment but then nodded. She needed a lot of mana for her experiments, but holding on to it would just slow things down since Ben's mana was so limited. If her mana was like a massive lake, then his was just a tiny pond. A few hours later, the base had dozens of new inhabitants. There were 6 Krell workers, 4 Krell logistics, and 2 Krell soldiers. Ben assigned the workers to start gathering Grimslate. He needed tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of blocks to finish the base. 2 Krell logistics were placed under Elvira's command to assist with her experiments, while the other 2 were assigned to transport all the Grimslate collected by the workers to a stockpile area. For now, Ben created a 7-meter in width and 7-meter in height space next to Elvira's lab to act as a temporary stockpile. He also put stockpile of food there for the Krell to consume. As for the Krell soldier, he left behind one to stand guard, took the other one with him to explore the area. Right now, he had only one real concern, finding a good source of mana. Something like the red gemstone. Chapter 29, White Lava. Ben looked between the 2 exits, and after some thought, he decided to go northeast. The route tilted downward, leading him deeper. He didn't really know where he was, but just like how he came to this world, Ben always preferred going deeper. The reason was simple, based on his experience, the deeper he went, the better the materials he would find. After walking some distance, Ben frowned. He had finally reached a dead end. Looking back toward where his base was located, he mumbled, A few kilometers. That hellworm's size is no joke. He then glanced around, eyes scanning the scattered body parts of the worm. So far, he had gathered everything on this road, leaving only one side untouched. A realization hit him: this leftover could attract other beasts, stacking even more danger on top of the ones he already had. Another problem. Ben cursed and walked toward the west tunnel. Taking out his pickaxe, he started digging. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a white gemstone. A white gemstone. Type: gem type material. Usage: crafting material, enchantment material. Max stack: 999. Rarity: epic. Origin: a luminous gem found in icy caverns, deep within ancient ruins, or near areas of high energy. Highly sought after for its ability to amplify light and holy-based enchantments. Tooltip: a fragment of frozen light. Ben's eyes lit up the moment he saw the notification. Without even checking the rest, he quickened his pace. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate. Ding. You obtained a white gemstone. Unlike the red gemstone, where he couldn't fully explore the area thanks to Elvira, now he could. And he planned to fully exploit it. If he had enough gemstones, fighting the Ant King and the Hellworm would be way easier. The drop rate kept increasing. At first, he would get one every 50 blocks, then every 20. Now he was getting 5 white gemstones every 10 blocks. This could only mean one thing: Ben was near a white gemstone mine. His mind raced, already forming plans. He needed to make a track between this area and the base. A whole mining operation. With the mana problem solved, he could create hundreds, no, thousands of krell to speed up progress. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, don't count your eggs before they hatch. Bam. Ding. You obtained a white gemstone. Bam. Ding. You obtained a Grimslate, but what lay beyond that block wasn't another one to mine. It was heat. Sizzling. Scorching. Blazing heat. Near areas of high energy. The description echoed in Ben's mind. He thought it meant mana. Turns out, mana existed in a form he never expected. Swoosh. A hot, searing liquid gushed out of the hole. Cracks spread through the Grimslate rock, running wild like veins of fire. Before Ben could even react, the one-block hole expanded. In seconds, it had become a massive pit. Your krell soldier has perished. Everything happened too fast. Ben barely managed to escape. And that was only thanks to the krell soldier's quick reflexes. It yanked him back, then threw him away, using its own body to block the molten flood. The hell? White molten lava? It was thick, sizzling, white-hot liquid. The surface shimmered, pulsing with magical energy, beautiful and deadly. Ben didn't know what it was. But he knew one thing for sure: it was dangerous. The same lethal level as the hellworm's digestive liquid. Consuming biomass, Ben's legs twisted and cracked, reshaping in real time. His muscles tensed as his knees bent backward, his bones shifting with a sickening pop. His feet stretched, elongating into sharp, curved claws, while his calves grew thicker and denser, forming a segmented exoskeleton like that of a predatory insect. With a single flex, the stored tension snapped, and Ben vanished in a blur. His new legs launched him forward with monstrous acceleration. This form was one of the methods he had thought of to fight better. While mining stone had bored him to death, his mind had been busy, always thinking of ways to improve, to fight, to survive. These legs were one of his ideas. They allowed him to accelerate like a rocket in a single direction. Using them in a real fight was difficult, but for escaping? It was like they were made for it. But despite his speed, the liquid didn't let up. Looking back, Ben could see the white lava surging toward him like a tsunami. This can't go on. Right now, he had two choices: build a dam to hold back the lava or keep running. Grimslate rock can withstand the heat. The only reason it failed was the pressure. Ben hurled multiple Grimslate blocks ahead, using them as footholds to jump higher. Up in the air, he glanced down, trying to calculate the best way to stop the lava. In his head, he ran the numbers: 3 blocks thick to hold back the liquid, then the height. At least 50 blocks tall. Okay, forget it. Ben muttered the moment he realized just how much material he'd need to block it off. If the lava had leaked through a crack, he might have been able to seal it. But now, if he wanted to dam the flow, he'd have to cover all 750 blocks of the tunnel's width. He only had one choice left: escape. Ben took out another block, his foot slamming into it midair, using it as a foothold to shoot forward like a bullet. A few minutes later, he finally reached the base, but the white lava still showed no signs of stopping. If anything, the volume had grown. Ben jumped out, landing on his temporary base. At this moment, he felt relieved that he had built the ground floor higher in the tunnel, otherwise, everything would have been submerged by now. His gaze dropped downward, watching the torrent of white lava rushing southeast, consuming everything in its path. My beloved, is this the water source you wanted? Elvira asked with bewildered expression as she landed beside Ben. She was busy with experiment when she suddenly feel a strong mana coming toward her. When she come out, Ben were already there on the base. Chapter 30, Sarek and Vectel. Not what I had in mind. Ben sighed before adding, do you know anything about this liquid? It suddenly burst out when I mined this gemstone. He took out the white gemstone, holding it up for Elvira to see. Elvira's eyes lit up. She quickly grasped the gemstone from Ben's palm and scrutinized it with her magic, looking deep into its interior. This gemstone enhances holy elemental magic. I thought this was just a myth. Her gaze then shifted to the shimmering white liquid. If this crystal really has holy energy, then this liquid should have some too. Or there's something else here giving off this element. Does holy energy hurt things here? Ben asked. The Krell soldier barely lasted a second before vanishing without a trace. He then looked toward the other end of the base. At least this should take care of the leftover hellworm. No need to worry about some wildlife invading our base. With how high we are, I wouldn't worry. Most beasts won't be able to reach us anyway. Elvira waved off his concern before continuing. How about making a boat and checking where you found this crystal? We need as much of it as we can. Ben raised an eyebrow. Could Grimslate even float on that liquid? It would need to be thick enough to stay above the surface. Worst case, they could just use Elvira's magic. What about the holy energy? He asked. Honestly, I don't know much about it. Very few people actually use holy magic, and I've never met any of them. Elvira shrugged. Some say this magic can even bring back the dead. Others claim it's a destructive force. So yeah, it's not surprising that it killed the Krell soldier instantly. In the end, we just call it holy because it's pure mana. Oh well, you're the expert. Ben didn't really get it, but he wasn't too interested in figuring it out either. If it was just pure mana, wasn't it just mana? Why call it holy? In games, this kind of thing was usually just the opposite of dark magic, something like a light element but with more healing properties. Whatever. Shoving those thoughts aside, Ben focused on his task. Using hundreds of blocks, he built a large boat, thick, heavy, and sturdy. Can you cast a spell to make this float? He asked, staring at his creation. He would hate it if all this just sank immediately. The boat was 3 blocks thick, 3 blocks high, a simple design without sails since it would be moved with magic. It wasn't like there was any wind here anyway. I can, Elvira said. Then, after a moment of thought, she added, actually, now that we have this gemstone, if you give me some time, I can create some kind of mechanism to push it forward and drive it. How many gemstones do you have? Ben glanced at her. He had a feeling she just didn't want to waste her own mana. But, to be fair, she had a point. It was better to keep her mana in case they needed to fight later. I have 189 blocks, he said. That's more than enough. I'll just use this one for now. Elvira nodded before turning away, heading back to her lab. She needed to incorporate the Elder Gleam crystal into the mechanism to make it work. Meanwhile, some distance away, the Nephirid Driven was already on the move. The Nephirid main base was far from Ben and the others, but they had long since built a transportation system to make travel easier between areas. Right now, Driven was on a boat, rowing his way through a river of magma. A bizarre creature, a mix between an octopus and a reptilian beast, was pulling the vessel forward. 2 of its tentacles clung to the sides of the boat, anchoring it against the current. Its entire body was covered in gray scales, and its bulging eyes barely peeked out from beneath the molten surface. Driven was not alone. 2 more Nephirids stood beside him, their glowing eyes fixated on the path ahead. Hey, Driven, thanks for choosing me to come along, one of the Nephirid grinned, his voice rough like stone grinding against stone. His name was Vectel, a seasoned warrior. Never thought I'd get to see an Ashborn up close, let alone travel with one. Feels like I should be bowing or something. He chuckled. Driven smirked, you bow, and I'll push you off the boat. Ha. Still the same old Driven, Vectel laughed, slapping his knee. No nonsense, no patience for ceremony. That's why I knew you'd make it. The other Nephirid, a leaner figure with molten red veins pulsing under his scaled skin, finally spoke. It's not just a title. Becoming Ashborn means you were forged in the flames and came out stronger. You carry the will of the embers now. His tone was more solemn. This was Sarek, the one who always thought deeper than the rest. And you chose us for the pilgrimage. That means something. Driven crossed his arms, his glowing eyes fixed ahead as the magma river churned beneath them. Of course I chose you too. Who else? Some highborn with their silver-plated armor and soft hands? I need warriors, not decorations. Vectel, you've survived more battles than I can count, and Sarek, Your mind is sharper than any blade. I don't just need fighters, I need Nefeerd beside me. Vektal grinned. Ha. You hear that, Sarek? He needs us. Makes me feel all warm inside. Sarek rolled his eyes. We're literally surrounded by magma, Vek. Try to contain yourself. Vektal smirked. Driven, can you show us the molten core? Driven glanced around, lowering his voice. Sure, but don't go blabbing. You know the tradition, no one's supposed to see it. Vektal scoffed. Hey, what you think I am? Don't you know I can keep secret? Sarek snorted. Oh, you mean like last time? When you kept secret so well we all got locked in the ash vault for a week. Vektal crossed his arms. That wasn't my fault. That was, Sarek cut him off. Oh yeah, right, the cultural misunderstanding. Apparently, greetings don't involve actually trying to wrestle the High Overseer into a lava trench. Vektal huffed. How was I supposed to know he was fragile? Chapter 31, Turnok Driven sighed, shaking his head. Why do I even bring you two? Reaching into the pouch hanging from his waist, he pulled out a small object. The moment his palm opened, a wave of searing heat exploded outward, forcing Vektal and Sarek to instinctively take a step back. The boat lurched, rocked by the sudden burst of energy. The octopus-like creature pulling them hissed in agitation, its tentacles gripping the edges tightly. But the heat lasted only a moment. Driven swiftly sealed the molten core back inside the pouch, his fingers tightening around it. He knew better than to let it linger. If the heat flared for too long, the beast would panic, and an accident in the middle of the magma river was the last thing they needed. Even though it had only been a glimpse, Vektal and Sarek would never forget what they saw. Vektal's voice came out rough, almost disbelieving. Isn't that just our heart? Driven chuckled. This is exactly why it's forbidden to show it to others. It's part of the secret behind the Ashborn's strength. And to keep everyone motivated to become one. The mortality rate for the Ashborn ritual was already dangerously high. Despite their natural resistance to heat, having their very existence reshaped by the primordial flame was something only a handful survived. And if more people knew the process involved ripping out their own heart, well, fewer would dare take the trial. But as high as the cost was, so was the reward, complete immunity to heat and a living weapon bound to them. You fool, it's not just our heart. Didn't you see? Sarek's voice was sharp, his gaze locked onto Dreven's pouch. It had teeth. That thing is alive. His mind raced as the pieces fell into place. Now I understand why the Ashborn must undergo another trial. When they say we forge our weapon from our own body, they mean it literally. Dreven exhaled. Honestly, I was just as surprised. I only learned about this after surviving the baptism. His glowing eyes flickered in the dim light. People think we're gathering materials for another ritual. But in reality, we're just feeding the molten core. Once it's full, it transforms into a weapon. Sarek's expression darkened as the weight of the revelation settled over him. Are you really sure about telling us this? His voice was lower now, tense. If this gets out, if anyone hears that you've broken the oath, you'll be labeled a traitor. The implication was clear. The Ashborn were famous for their near-indestructibility in battle, limitless stamina, absurd regeneration, and even if their heads were severed, they would just turn to ash and grow back. Until now, everyone assumed it was a blessing from the primordial flame. But now Sarek knew the truth. Their heart wasn't in their body. It had been separated, turned into a living weapon. That meant to truly kill an Ashborn, one didn't need to destroy their body. They needed to destroy the weapon. This knowledge changed everything. The reason the Nefeerd still held their position despite their last great tragedy was because of the Ashborn warriors. If this secret ever got out, if their enemies learned how to truly kill them, at the very least, Driven, Vektal, and Sarek would be silenced, publicly executed as a warning to keep the Ashborn loyal and silent. Driven just let out another low chuckle. You two already know my true goal. We're all in the same boat, not just this one. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping just enough to carry a quiet weight. If either of you babble, I'm finished. And so are you. Silence ensued as the three of them locked eyes. Driven's words brought back memories of an old oath, one that had pushed him to become Ashborn while the others had focused on carving their own place in the world. Vektal let out a long sigh before cracking a grin. Well, enough about that. What's the plan now? First, we need you to officially become Ashborn before you start thinking about your suicide mission. Sarek nodded, his molten red veins pulsing faintly as he studied Driven. We'll go to the Turnok. Ugly bastards, but their scouting skills are unmatched. They have an information network that stretches across the entire underground. I'm sure they know more than that bastard king ever told me. The Turnok? Vektal's grin faded, replaced with a scowl. You serious? Those creepy crawlers? His expression twisted with reluctance as old memories surfaced. The Durnock were short, hunched creatures, standing at around 91 to 122 centimeters, their bodies encased in jet black chitin that absorbed both light and vibrations, making them nearly impossible to detect. Even a veteran like Vectel had barely sensed them the last time they worked together. But it wasn't just their stealth that got under his skin, it was their attitude. Most Durnock had a rough, sadistic streak. They enjoyed messing with their allies, constantly jump-scaring them mid-mission, making it seem like they were about to slit their throats, only to stop at the last second and mock them for being too slow to react. Even though the Durnock were technically vassals of the Nefirid, they never showed an ounce of respect. Vectel crossed his arms. You sure there's no better choice? Maybe anything that doesn't skitter around in the dark and think it's funny to give their own allies a heart attack? Driven smirked. If you've got a better option, let's hear it. Vectel fell silent, his expression tightening. He knew firsthand how dangerous the Durnock were. It wasn't just their stealth, their three multi-jointed fingers could shift into razor-sharp claws, slicing through even the toughest armor like it was wet paper. Their detection abilities made it nearly impossible to surprise them, and their ability to vanish into the dark was something he still found unsettling. They're a solid choice, Vectel admitted, grudgingly. But they're not gonna help for free. You got the payment? Sarek nodded in agreement. They will ask for something, and it won't be cheap. Driven chuckled, tapping the pouch at his waist. Don't worry. I came prepared. Besides, this is a chance to lay the groundwork for our future plans. He leaned forward, his voice lowering as he began explaining in detail what he had in mind. Chapter 32, So Stingy. Meanwhile, back at the base, Ben had no clue what Driven and the others were up to. He was being busy. The base had expanded even further. Since he didn't dare to go past 10 blocks in length without proper column foundations, he focused on widening it, stretching it to a full 20 blocks. Ben also upgraded the warehouse, splitting it into 2 sections, one for materials, the other for workers. He built multiple floors, giving the workers a proper place to rest. Before, they just laid on the floor, blocking the roads. Now, with designated spaces, the warehouse was way more efficient. Then, he took out another white gemstone and started creating more Krell soldiers and workers. The result shocked him. A red gemstone only gave him 1,000 mana, but this white one? It had 10 times that amount. With it, Ben created 10 more Krell workers, 5 assigned to digging, while the rest focused on expanding the base. They couldn't use his system's unique blocks for construction, but as long as the floor and walls were already created, they could work with them. Ben also made 3 new Krell soldiers, planning to bring one with him while leaving the other 2 to guard the base. Now, the base housed 16 Krell workers, 4 Krell logistics units, and 4 Krell soldiers. Watching his growing forces, Ben felt deep satisfaction. Unlike the ants, these were his own creations. He could already picture hundreds of them moving around the base, each doing their assigned tasks. And best of all, they had no personalities, no minds of their own. No mutiny, no rebellion, no problems. My beloved, I'm done. Where is the boat? Elvira's voice came from behind. Her gaze locked onto the new Krell Ben had just created. Ah, you made more of them. Good. We can use more hands. Ben turned and saw something floating behind her, a box attached to a propeller, barely reaching a single block in size. He raised a brow. Are you sure that's enough to push a boat forward? Don't worry, Elvira said with a confident smile. You'll see. Ben didn't waste time. He pulled the boat from his inventory. Here we go, he said, releasing it onto the white lava. Despite letting go, the boat didn't move. Elvira took control with her magic. The machine behind her floated toward the boat's rear, and as it got close, it began expanding. Its mechanisms latched onto the back, extending down to the bottom where 2 propellers emerged. On the part attached to the boat, Ben noticed a slot for a white gemstone, along with a few buttons, probably to control it. He was impressed. So, you can make things smaller? Yes, if I have the time, Elvira said, waving a hand dismissively. But in case you're wondering, no, I can't use it in combat. Takes way too much focus and time to cast. Ben folded his arms, glancing at the contraption. I see. But are you sure it'll hold? Elvira scoffed, don't worry. This device doesn't just propel, it also creates a barrier to protect against the heat. So, it should be fine. She flashed a grin. I even added a restore function. If it breaks, it'll absorb more mana and fix itself. Ben let out a low whistle. That's great, but it'll probably use a lot of mana. How efficient is it? Elvira shrugged. How would I know? Let's test it out. She then opened her palm, making Ben raise an eyebrow. The white gemstone. Ben raised an eyebrow. Didn't I already give you one? Elvira huffed, so stingy. I already used that one to make the device. Ben looked at the machine, scrutinizing it. I don't see any white gemstone on it. Elvira's lips twitched. You're such a stingy husband, my beloved. She pulled out the white gemstone from her pocket, showing it to him. See? There's barely any mana left inside. Fine, I admit I used some to recover my mana too, but is that a problem? Isn't it better if we go at full strength? Alright, chill. I was just asking. Ben sighed, pulling out another white gemstone. He could clearly see the one in Elvira's hand had lost its luster. What white gemstone? It looked more like a piece of transparent glass. With a flick, he sent the new one toward the device. The moment it entered the socket, a low hum echoed through the air. A light blue aura spread out, covering the whole boat before fading away. Elvira then released her magic, letting gravity pull the boat down onto the white lava. Shhhh. A loud sizzling sound filled the air as smoke rose from the contact. Ben and Elvira narrowed their eyes, waiting for a few moments until the reaction settled. Then, she jumped onto the boat, placing her palm over the gemstone. It's not that bad. It spends 1 mana every 2 seconds. A single gemstone should last us at least 5 hours. Alright, that's more than enough. Ben nodded and jumped down, following her. Bam. The Krell soldier also leaped down right after, shaking the boat violently. Jaya. Elvira yelped, stumbling as she shot a glare at Ben. Couldn't you have given me a little warning first? Ben let out a chuckle. Sorry, I forgot. Well, let's go. He pointed in the direction where the white lava was flowing from. Head that way. Elvira didn't respond. She was still annoyed about Ben being stingy and the sudden impact from the Krell soldier. Instead, she pressed a few buttons, and the boat slowly began moving forward. Ben stepped onto the bow, one knee raised, grinning as he stared into the dark tunnel ahead. To infinity. And beyond. What? Elvira frowned, clearly confused. Ben chuckled. Nothing. Just seeing that black hole reminded me of a famous movie from my past. It was a kid's show, but it had a good story. Elvira raised an eyebrow. A movie? You mean some kind of entertainment? Ben thought for a moment before explaining. Do you have made-up stories in books you read? Chapter 33, A Ruin? Elvira leaned forward slightly, her tone casual yet curious. Ah, you mean fiction? Of course. It's one of my hobbies to pass the time. Now imagine real-life actors performing the scenes, while everything is recorded and played back later for people to watch. That's what I call a movie. Elvira's eyes lit up. Ah, so a projection show. We have something like that here too. Do you want to see one? Ben was intrigued. He knew that through entertainment like this, he could learn more about the world's culture and perspectives, which would help him adapt faster. So far, he had only encountered beasts or ridiculous monsters like the hellworm. Sure, let's check it out after we get back. Elvira nodded, then suddenly remembered something. Oh yeah, you promised to show me your memories of the old world. Can you do it now? Now? You know we could run into combat at any time. Ben glanced around the tunnel. Right now, he didn't sense anything, but who knew if something would suddenly show up. And there was also the white magma, he couldn't sense anything inside it either. Of course, I don't mean watching it now. But I need to cast the magic on your mind, the sooner, the better. The spell will copy all your memories. Don't worry, it won't affect you in any way, as long as you don't resist it. Ben stared at Elvira, suspicion creeping into his mind. He had a feeling she had already siphoned some of the white gemstone's mana for this purpose. But he didn't say anything. Fine, do it. Start from my earliest memories. Okay, turn your back to me. Ben nodded and turned his gaze forward. The tunnel wasn't too far, just a few kilometers, but with the boat's slow pace, it would take around 30 minutes to get there. Elvira placed her palm on Ben's back. Relax your muscles. I'm starting. A ripple of mana spread from her palm. Ben felt the foreign energy moving through his veins, heading toward his brain. His instincts flared, warning him to resist, to block the intrusion, but he forced himself to stay calm. He took a few deep breaths. Relax. If she wanted to do something weird, she would have done it already. After their fight with the Ant King, Ben found himself trusting Elvira more. She had drained all her mana until she collapsed, leaving herself completely vulnerable. Their lives were also linked. If she tried anything suspicious, like controlling his mind, he could just blow his own head off and regenerate later. Worst case, he'd rather die than be mind-controlled. Elvira's lips curled into a warm smile as she felt little resistance from him. The magic seeped into his brain, mapping out all the neural pathways. Alright, it's done. It'll feel weird for a while, but just bear with it. When the process is complete, I'll know. Okay. Ben replied. Saying it felt weird was an understatement. It was like thousands of ants crawling around inside his skull. If he were still a normal human, he'd probably go insane from the sensation. Pushing it to the back of his mind, he changed the topic. How strong are you now compared to your peak? Elvira hummed in thought. Hard to say. As a mage, I'm not built for direct combat. But based on the level of spells I can cast and my current fighting ability, I'd say I'm barely at 5% of my peak. What do you need to reach your full strength? Mages grow stronger in two ways, slowly increasing mana capacity while hoarding knowledge, or finding powerful relics that complement our skills. Ah, like the combat suit you mentioned before? Yes. In the past, I had a stone catalyst that massively increased my mana capacity. It pushed my strength to a whole new level. I've had many artifacts, but that one was the best. Since you're regressing, don't you know where to find it? Have you gathered all of them? Elvira shook her head. That ruin exists in the second layer, near Other's territory. Right now, I'm like a fugitive. It's too dangerous to go back for it. As for the others, most of them came from auctions, so I can't get them now. I do have knowledge of some ruins we could explore, but we're way too far from them. Honestly, I don't even know which layer we're in right now. Somewhere much deeper than our last one. If you have any information on the average temperature, we might be able to estimate. The deeper we go, the hotter it gets. I see. Well, I've never seen this white lava before either. But her eyes gleamed as she added, it's beautiful. Ben smirked. Yeah. And before you ask what the sky looks like, imagine this white lava, but completely black, with shimmering magical energy. That's the night sky. Hope I can see it one day. You've really never been to the surface? No information at all? No. Anyone who tried never returned. We were always told that nothing can survive up there. Even at my peak, I had zero knowledge of the surface. When was your strongest peak? The first regression or the second? That would be. But her voice trailed off as the boat approached its destination. Ben turned his gaze toward the massive opening where the white lava flowed from. His eyes lit up, lips curling into a wide grin. We're rich. Through the opening, they could see an endless spread of white gemstones, embedded in the ceiling, the walls, everywhere. Some even jutted out from the lava itself. Elvira, however, was surprised for an entirely different reason. On the left side of the area, she spotted carvings etched into a slab of rock. Ben might dismiss it, but she knew exactly what it was. A ruin. A ruin from a bygone era. And from the carvings. It was from that period, the mysterious age. The era when humans were spoken of as gods. The period with the least amount of recorded history. Chapter 34, Weird calculation. Can you use magic to make this boat smaller? Ben asked, eyeing the tunnel ahead. The boat barely had enough space to squeeze through. They could try maneuvering it, but there was a huge chance they'd get stuck. After passing the narrow tunnel, they would enter a massive open area. Calculating the mana she would need, Elvira gave a nod. Since it's not for long, I should be able to do it. She then raised her palm. Ben sighed and pulled out another white gemstone, grumbling internally. Why even bother calculating when you're just going to ask me for another gemstone in the end? Elvira took the gemstone with a gleeful expression before starting to cast her spell. A magic circle appeared over the device on the boat. Compactus. A surge of magic burst forward, enveloping the entire boat. A moment later, a creaking sound filled the air as the boat started shrinking. It didn't change much, only about 15%, but that was enough to get them through the tunnel. Seems like casting this spell takes almost all of her focus, Ben noted. From her expression, he could tell she couldn't be disturbed. At the same time, Elvira also boosted the boat's speed to ensure they passed through quickly. The moment they exited the tunnel, Elvira dropped to her knees, breathing raggedly. Sweat covered her face as the boat returned to its normal size. They drifted toward the entrance of the ruin, where a solid surface awaited them. Even the ground was made of the same white gemstone, but Ben had no interest in digging through it right now. That was the only place they could stand. Walking beside Elvira, he took out a handkerchief. Here. Thanks, Elvira replied, using it to wipe her face. She felt a bit bewildered. Where the hell did Ben even get this? But she didn't ask. There were more important matters at hand. My beloved, that's the entrance to a ruin. Ben followed her gaze. That? It's just some weird carvings. Don't tell me you can activate it and teleport yourself inside. Yes, you're right. So it's like a dungeon. Ben thought to himself. The moment we enter, we won't be able to leave unless we find another exit. Are there any limitations like how many can enter? Also, can you figure out how big the dungeon is? Ben was already planning to create a bunch of Krell soldiers to help explore. The more, the better. That would increase their survivability inside. Give me some time, Elvira replied while catching her breath. She jumped down from the boat and placed her palm over the carvings. Ben and his Krell soldiers also disembarked. He ordered them to guard the boat since he didn't want to store it in his inventory. Right now, he only had 4 empty slots left, with the other 6 already filled. As he waited for Elvira, Ben took out his pickaxe and started mining the white gemstones. Each strike against the stone made him grin. Ding. You obtained 13 pieces of white gemstone. Ding. You obtained 12 pieces of white gemstone. Ding. You obtained 18 pieces of white gemstone. Mining on the source gives really different results. Based on pure math, he should have gotten more. Each block was 1 meter in width and 1 meter in height, but the outcome was still amazing. Who knew where the rest went? Maybe the corrupt system was taking a cut, or heck, maybe the author was just too lazy to use large numbers and calculate proper sizes. Anyway, the results were satisfying. In a short period, he had already tripled the number of white gemstones in his inventory. Ben then stopped mining, as Elvira started to speak. We can enter with 4 people. Better to make more Krell scouts, my beloved. I cannot determine a size inside, so it's better to be safe. Does the dungeon have other limitations? Can I use my abilities inside? If yes, I'll just create them in there. Ben's purpose were to find out the size inside first so he can choose which one to create, but Elvira's eyes lit up as an idea struck her. If it works, we can probably exploit this. The limitation on people only applies when entering. You can create more inside as long as your ability isn't sealed. But honestly, I've never heard of ruins that seal artifact abilities. That's great. You should rest first. Use the white gemstones to recover your mana. Ben planned to mine more white gemstones to make sure he had enough stockpile inside. But before he could move, Elvira raised her palm again. Just use the ones from before. You still have plenty left. It should be enough for you to recover. Her gaze remained firm, her palm still extended. Stingy husband. You have so many, and you're still so stingy. Ben's lips twitched. He didn't even have the energy to complain about her calling him husband, nor to argue whether it meant the same thing to him, a human, as it did to her, a netheress. He just tossed another white gemstone into her hand. Her expression instantly softened into a warm smile as she happily sat cross-legged and started meditating. That change in mood. One thing's for sure, netheress women aren't much different from us humans, Ben thought as he returned to grinding for white gemstones. His goal was to fill 2 full stacks, around 1,800 white gemstones. It didn't take long for him to fill those stacks, leaving him with only 4 slots left in his inventory. Ben then pulled up the creature creation screen and started modifying the Krell Scout. He replaced their chitin armor with the one he got from the Ant King. This should do. Processing. Making final adjustments and calculating final cost. Krell Scout, complexity, 12, cost, 426 mana, 300 biomass. Seeing the numbers, Ben raised an eyebrow. His last creation was way cheaper than this. A large Krell soldier had only cost him 276 mana and 320 biomass. But this one, 426 mana for a smaller unit? How the hell does the smaller one cost more? Shouldn't the bigger creatures be more expensive? Chapter 35, Stuck. Is this because the system is asleep? Damn, he corrupted so much before. Or is it because my pickaxe got upgraded, changing how the calculation works? Ben wondered in his mind. No matter how hard he thought, he couldn't find the true reason. In the end, he could only let out a heavy sigh. With a tough thud, 2 Krell scouts with upgraded chitin stepped in front of him. Have you rested enough, Elvira? Let's go. Sure, I'm waiting for you. She stood up and walked toward the engraving, placing her palm on it. Ben stared at the engraving. It looks like Egyptian hieroglyphs, but the pictures don't feel like they're from there. Based on his experience, hieroglyphs usually had images of pyramids, human body parts, lions, hawks, and the like. But this one was filled with strange symbols he couldn't make sense of. Only a few were familiar, a depiction of a third eye, something resembling a computer, and a modern cross. Suddenly, the hieroglyphs began emitting a blue light. Before he knew it, they were engulfed by it. The surroundings blurred, the beautiful white gemstone walls, ceiling, ground, and even the white lava all vanished, replaced by a dusty metallic floor. Ben looked around, and an eerie sense of familiarity crept over him. This is like a bunker. Concrete walls surrounded them, and in front stood a massive vault door. Ben had worked on a few underground bunker projects before, so he was familiar with many door models, but this one baffled him. It was huge, wide enough for 2 giant creatures to walk side by side with plenty of space left. The door itself towered easily over 10 blocks tall. His eyes darted around, searching for some kind of terminal. Meanwhile, Elvira walked toward the door. She carefully ran her fingers along the surface, then knocked on it a few times. A dull, muffled thump was her only response. Frowning, she repeated the knocks, this time channeling her mana into each tap. With every knock, her mana spread out like delicate spiderwebs, creeping into the door's structure. If she sensed even the slightest change, she marked the area before moving to the next section. This was her method for exploring ruins, making sure she didn't trigger any traps. Ben, still searching for a terminal, furrowed his brows. I don't believe there's nothing. Even if it's designed to only open from the inside, there's always a failsafe. Of course, getting access to it wouldn't be easy. But for a vault of this size, there had to be an emergency mechanism. A vault this massive wouldn't be built without some kind of contingency, otherwise, a single error could lock away all the treasures inside permanently. Is it some kind of biometric keypad? A mechanical override, like a manual crank? Or something magical? Considering how they were teleported, Ben felt it had to be something magical, but mixed with technology he was familiar with. He turned to Elvira, intending to discuss the matter, but seeing her still busy, he decided against interrupting her. Instead, he chose to explore more. He ordered the 2 Krell scouts to help, this time focusing on canvassing each panel on the floor and walls. Time passed as they knocked on different spots, tried pulling panels off, and pressed on anything that looked like a button, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, Elvira's progress on the vault door also hit a dead end. Her face was covered in sweat as she stepped back, letting out a frustrated breath. This thing is far more complicated than I thought. You finally done? Ben asked, glancing at Elvira, who was wiping sweat off her forehead. Not really, she muttered with a frown. The more I look, the more confused I get. I can't find any traps or any mechanism to open the door. And the strangest part? No matter how far I probe, it feels like the door's thickness never ends. Ben frowned but quickly recalled how Elvira could shrink objects here, and his own dimensional pouch. It wasn't impossible. Did they use some kind of protection to mess with detection magic? He figured it was plausible. He shared his thoughts with Elvira, explaining his experience building similar doors and what kind of mechanisms they usually had. Elvira listened in silence. But when Ben mentioned code mechanisms using biometric information like fingerprints and eye scans, her eyes lit up. We have a method that uses special mana signatures to trigger mechanisms. It's the same thing I put in those talismans to activate them. Then do you have any idea what kind mana signature they use? No, but I guess we can find some clues from the engravings outside. She scanned the area, searching for any markings or symbols, in case she missed something. Give me some time, my beloved, I will try to crack this code. Well, time is the only thing we have now, Ben replied with a sigh. To get out, they needed to find the exit, but how could they do that when they were already stuck at the entrance? Before you get busy again, can you tell me about your experience with ruins? Have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, similar architecture. Nope, this is the first time I've seen a ruin with this kind of architecture with my own eyes, Elvira said, her gaze sweeping across the massive vault door. But I believe, based on reports, that the combat suit relic also came from the ruin like this. The structure, the material composition, everything about this place reminds me of what was described in those findings. Back then, we didn't have access to the original site, only recovered fragments and incomplete data. No wonder you were so excited when we found this ruin. Ben crossed his arms, thinking back at the strange symbols outside the vault. How about the translation for those symbols outside? Can you tell me what it meant? Maybe there's a clue we're missing. Honestly, I have no idea what it means. You what? Ben asked in surprise. Then how did you activate the dungeon? Chapter 36, Turnok Striders. Activating the dungeon isn't hard. As long as we infuse mana into it, it teleports us inside. Her lips curled into a proud smirk. As for knowing how many people the dungeon can accept, that's thanks to my knowledge of magic. By analyzing the magical pattern and the total mana capacity it uses to activate, I can estimate how many people it can teleport. She then turned to Ben, eyes shimmering with expectation, like a puppy waiting to be praised. Her expression practically screamed, "See? You shouldn't regret being so bound to me. I'm useful." But Ben ignored her, casually shifting his focus elsewhere. Her face immediately soured into a pout. "Go try it then. I'll think of another way to get in." Elvira didn't reply, but her glare bore into him. "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" "Nothing. Forget it." Her tone turned cold as she started forming a magic circle around her, analyzing the engravings with precise movements. Ben let out a heavy sigh. "You're a genius, mage. I'm lucky to meet you. There, happy?" Elvira didn't respond, but he caught the slight curl of her lips before she quickly hid it. Ben shook his head and turned his gaze upward. This is the only spot I haven't checked yet. As he studied the ceiling, something felt off. This place is lit, but there's no light source. Is this magic too? He glanced around again. The room was oval-shaped, with one defining feature, the massive vault door. The rest was nothing but plain concrete walls, including the dome-like ceiling. If anything is hidden, it has to be in the floor. Ben crouched down, placing his palm against the metallic surface. The texture was rough beneath his fingers, enough to provide grip while walking. Normally, metal floors on Earth had coatings or textured patterns like checkered grips, but this. At first glance, it looked completely smooth, yet the moment he touched it, he could feel the fine grain beneath his fingertips. A Durnock sneered, flashing a toothy grin. He wore nothing but a leather waistguard, his chest wrapped in a diagonal belt lined with a chaotic assortment of weapons. The others were dressed in a similar fashion, lean, wiry bodies covered in chitin-like plating, their belts overloaded with jagged knives, bone hooks, and rusted throwing spikes. The female Durnock, however, had a different approach. Rather than a belt of weapons, they adorned themselves with tattered cloaks made from woven cavern moss and dyed animal hides. Driven strode past them and entered the bar without a glance. He knew better than to respond to their provocations and get dragged into an unnecessary conflict. The establishment was carved directly into the stone, its walls rough and uneven, with faintly glowing fungi sprouting in the cracks. The air reeked of damp leather, oil, and something metallic, blood, most likely. The place was rowdy. Low murmurs, loud laughter, and the occasional clink of crude metal cups filled the air. The occupants, a mixture of Durnock, barely acknowledged Dreven's entrance. They only spare him a glance before getting busy with their own task. Different with the one outside, this bar is filled by striders. Durnock specialized in getting information, and creating hidden passageways. For them, Driven is just another customer coming to rent their tunnel for passage or looking for information. At one corner, a scarred Durnock leaned over the table, his claws idly scraping against a stone mug as he sneered at his companion. "Did you hear? Some fool said the hellworm's dead." His companion, a lanky figure wrapped in patchwork hides, gave a rasping chuckle. "Keek. Ain't possible. Who'd be strong enough to think they killed that thing?" A third voice, hoarse and sharp, cut in from a nearby table. "They say someone found the remain." That got a reaction. A few nearby drinkers went quiet, their clawed fingers pausing over their drinks. "Bullshit," another Durnock spat, flicking a dagger upright on the table with an annoyed clink. "Ain't no one who kills the hellworm and walks away. If it's dead, we'd be drowning in blood tremors by now." "Yeah?" The first one leaned back, grinning. "Then why are the tunnels near the rift silent, huh? No deep rumbling. No shifting rock. Just dead air." Sarek's eyebrow raised slightly as he listened to the murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper. "Driven. You think this hellworm has something to do with the traveler? If it does, that's bad news." Driven nodded, his expression grim. Beating a hellworm? That monstrosity? It wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. If someone had managed to do it, their strength would be beyond ridiculous. He exhaled slowly, thoughts running ahead of him. If this traveler is real, could they be even stronger than the Ash King? "Ha. No way. You lot don't know what you're talking about," Vectel scoffed, shaking his head. His voice was louder than it needed to be, enough to cut through the murmurs and draw attention. "You've never faced one directly, but I have." He jabbed a clawed finger toward the others. "And I'm telling you, there's no way anyone could kill that thing." His disbelief hung in the air for a moment, a few eyes turning toward him. Some scoffed, some smirked. A Durnock at the next table let out a low, clicking chuckle. "Keek. Listen to him. I've seen one, I know." "What, you hug it good night before running like a scared grub?" The table erupted in dry laughter, but Vectel's scowl deepened. "I didn't run," he growled, baring his teeth. "I survived." "Yeah, just like the rest of us," one of the Durnock sneered, leaning forward with a lazy smirk. "You think that makes you special?" Vectel's claws twitched, ready to snap back, but before he could, Driven's hand landed firmly on his shoulder. A silent warning. With a calm tone, Driven spoke, "My friend's just in disbelief. That thing was a menace, everyone knows it. Hearing someone took it down? Doesn't exactly sound real." The Durnock across from them clicked his tongue, unimpressed. "Then why are you here? If you don't believe our information, you sure as hell don't need it." Chapter 37, A Proposal. Sarek was the one to speak first. "We're looking for information on powerful individuals in the area. Anyone new in the last few months?" One of the Durnock, half hidden in the dimly lit room, sneered. "Sure. 10,000 Dursel, and I'll give you a list of names. 100,000 Dursel if you want to know their strength." Sarek's expression darkened. The price was absurd. It was outright extortion, even by Durnok standards. He was about to argue when Driven spoke instead. Forget it. Just tell me where Slark is. I have something to offer. The moment his words left his mouth, the entire room changed. Every Durnok in sight melted into the shadows, disappearing instantly. All except for one. The bartender. Unlike the others, the bartender was dressed in formal attire, a sleek black suit, clean, well-fitted. No visible weapons. But Driven knew better. He knew that among the Durnok, the ones who carried no weapons were often the most dangerous. The air grew thick. A heavy, oppressive weight settled over the room as Sarek and Vectel instinctively tensed, their bodies preparing for combat. The bartender finally spoke, his voice emotionless. Driven, the new Ashburn. The one with a vendetta against his own kind. Why are you looking for our warden? His eyes. They were sharp, dissecting, peeling away every layer of Driven's being. It was as if he could see through every lie, every intention. Fear crawled into Driven's chest, but he forced it down, clenching his fists. He wasn't even a fully fledged Ashborn yet. He had no official rank, no real power to back him. But he needed this. Once his trial was over, he'd be locked into the system, forced to work in assigned squads. If he wanted to lay the groundwork for his plan, this was his only chance. Yes, Driven said, his voice steady despite the pressure. I have a proposal. A proposal. A slow, eerie grin spread across the bartender's face, but there was no warmth in it, only something cold, something hungry. Are you telling me that you, a fledgling Ashborn, have something that the entire Durnok race wants? That you can accomplish something we cannot? The last word came with a shift in the air. Killing intent exploded from all sides. Driven felt it coil around him like 1,000 invisible blades, pressing in, watching, waiting. Sarek and Vectel dropped to their knees under the weight of it, gasping as the sheer presence of the Durnok warriors threatened to crush them. And the worst part? The Durnok weren't afraid of the consequences. If they killed Driven here, they'd likely be punished. But with how valuable they were, that punishment wouldn't be anything severe. A slap on the wrist at worst. After all, in a feared society, the weak had no value. Only the strong had the right to exist. The weak existed to serve the strong. Driven gritted his teeth, a deep hatred flickering in his molten eyes. But he held his ground. One cannot succeed alone, he said. You had no one on the inside before. But with me, we can cooperate, to both our benefit. Swoosh. The suffocating pressure condensed, slamming down all at once. Sarek and Vectel hit the floor, struggling to even lift their heads. Driven staggered but refused to fall. Then, cold metal touched his obsidian skin. At first, he thought it was just a dagger. But no. He felt it. A subtle, deadly vibration coursed through the blade, sending an unmistakable message. This was no ordinary weapon. This was something that could kill him. Say it, child. If I find it interesting, then we can talk. If we cannot, then you will lose your head here. Driven gulped. He couldn't feel any presence behind him, but he knew the threat was real. The voice sounded like it came from an elder, filled with warmth, but he knew the weapon would cut through his hardened obsidian skin like butter. And even though he could regenerate, losing Sarek and Vectel was out of the question. There was no way they'd be spared. Hear me out. Driven began narrating his plan in complete detail. He made sure to highlight each part that would interest the Durok, especially the Nefirid Kingdom's current weakness. The Ashborn warriors were strong but few in number. Their vast territory left them stretched thin. Meanwhile, back at the ruins, Elvira opened her eyes as the magic circle dissipated. My beloved, I have an idea, but it's risky. What kind of risk? Ben asked, his back pressed against the cold concrete wall. He had tried everything. Even using his blockify pickaxe, only for it to trigger a massive spark an inch away from the wall, sending him flying backward. He tried multiple times, each attempt ending the same way. In the end, he had no choice but to sit and wait for Elvira to finish. Well, either I open this vault door, nothing happens, or it triggers some kind of alarm. Just go for it, then. Not like we have any other choice, Ben replied, pushing himself up before walking to her side. At the same time, he ordered the Krell scouts to spread out, positioning them to the left and right in preparation for combat. His creature creation system remained open before his eyes. If the trap was too much, he was ready to dump resources to counter it. So what if it was far stronger? He'd just summon hundreds of Krell soldiers if he had to. All right, I'll start. Mana began gathering at Elvira's palm, then shot toward the vault as she adjusted the mana frequency. The shifting energy formed a sound, almost musical. Ben frowned the moment he heard it. This sound. It feels familiar. Where have I heard this before? The tune lingered in the air. At first, the notes were light and playful, bouncing in a rhythmic pattern that felt almost nostalgic. Do-do, do-do-do, do. Ben's brow furrowed. The melody climbed in a familiar pattern, each note stacking on the last with a crisp, cheerful ring. It was fast, energetic, almost like, do-do, do-do-do, do. His eyes widened slightly. No way. But before he could finish the thought, the room reacted. Chapter 38, Wave Game? The walls trembled, a low mechanical clunk echoing through the chamber. Many vertical lines appeared from the center of the dome, then extended downward all the way to the ground. A horizontal line followed, carving a square pattern across the entire wall. Before they could react, each square started shifting outward. The surface turned red, followed by a pattern of white spots appearing over it. Another horizontal line formed, but unlike the ones before that cut through the concrete, this one twisted into a mouth. It curled upward, stretching into an eerie grin. An array of sharp, white teeth emerged from it. "Elvira, stay where you are. I'll take care of this," Ben muttered, pulling out his pickaxe. Hundreds of these weird block monsters had appeared. But he wasn't worried. Judging by their appearance, they didn't seem to have any long-range attacks. Seconds ticked by. The cube monsters began shifting horizontally, each row moving in different directions. Their speed turned them into a blur. Then, suddenly, numbers flickered into existence in the air. Level 10 out of 400, 10. The final line displayed a countdown, decreasing with each passing second. "What the fuck, is this a game?" Ben blurted out. "My beloved, what do you mean by that?" "This is probably some kind of test," Elvira replied, tilting her head. Ben frowned. The mechanical clanking, the blocky shapes, the musical chime from before, it all felt way too familiar. He couldn't shake the thought of a classic game from his childhood, the one where a mustached guy kept jumping around to save a princess. Will I have to fight a dragon turtle as the final boss too? But before he could respond to Elvira, the countdown hit 0. 4 cube monsters shot forward like meteors. Ben didn't even move. He simply gave a command. One of the Krell scouts leapt upward, raising its sharp claws. With a sharp downward swing, it sliced through the first cube monster midair. The red surface split apart, revealing a hollow inside filled with glowing white energy. The moment it was cut, the creature froze, its body trembling before bursting into pixel-like fragments that scattered across the ground. The second Krell scout crouched low, its claws scraping against the floor. The next 2 cubes shoot toward Ben, their mouths snapping open and shut like hungry beasts. The scout didn't hesitate. It twisted its body and slammed its clawed arm into the nearest cube, sending it flying against the floor. The moment it made contact, it shattered into the same glowing fragments. The last cube tried to veer away. But the first scout was faster. It landed from its previous attack, then dashed forward. Its clawed foot stomped down on the cube, pinning it in place. A clicking sound came from its throat before it drove its sharp claw straight through the cube's core. The creature let out a distorted, mechanical screech before it disintegrated. A chime echoed through the air. Level 1 complete. A moment of silence followed before the numbers flickered again. Level 20 out of 800, 20. Ben barely had time to process before the entire chamber began shifting again. The square patterns on the wall rearranged themselves, forming new rows. Then, one by one, the blocks detached, floating off the walls and into the air. The red color deepened, their eerie grins stretching even wider. Then they dropped. 8 cube monsters shot toward the ground like living meteors, the impact shaking the chamber. This time the moment they landed, they surged forward, moving even faster than before. "Ah, great. They got an upgrade," Ben muttered, tightening his grip on his pickaxe. "My beloved, you need backup," Elvira commented, unfazed as she observed the approaching creatures. Ben clicked his tongue. "No need." The first cube lunged straight at him, its mouth snapping open like a bear trap. Ben sidestepped just in time, swinging his pickaxe in a wide arc. The tip of the weapon struck the cube's side, sending cracks running through its red surface. It faltered for a second, but didn't break apart completely. Before Ben could follow up, 2 more cubes came at him from different angles. But the Krell scouts were already moving. The first scout intercepted one of them mid-dash, swiping its sharp claw straight through its body. The cube exploded into shards before it could even react. The second scout dealt with another in a more brutal fashion. It grabbed the cube by the edges, claws sinking into its shifting form. Then, with a sharp twist, it tore the monster in half. The 2 pieces disintegrated before they even hit the ground. Ben saw an opening. He twisted his pickaxe and drove it straight into the cracked cube from before. The moment the sharp tip struck its core, the monster let out a garbled screech before shattering into digital fragments. 5 down. 3 to go. The remaining cubes suddenly stopped in place. Their white spots flickered erratically, and then without warning, their bodies started spinning. The air around them distorted, a mechanical whirring sound filling the room. Their red surfaces blurred as they began to rotate at insane speeds. Ben's eyes twitched. They got a spin attack too? The cubes shot forward like deadly saw blades, cutting through the air with terrifying force. One of them barely missed his face as he ducked, the sheer speed sending a gust of wind past his ear. Elvira chuckled softly. Still not need any help? Ben gritted his teeth. Nope, save your mana. The Krell scouts didn't flinch. Instead, they adapted. The first scout jumped backward, letting one of the spinning cubes pass by before dashing forward and striking it from behind. The moment its claws connected, the monster shattered instantly. The second scout, rather than dodging, charged straight at the spinning cube. Just as it was about to collide, the scout flipped its body midair and brought both of its bladed arms down like a guillotine. The cube split in half, breaking apart in a flash of white light. Chapter 39, Don't worry, the last one came straight for Ben. He exhaled sharply. Alright, let's see if this works. As the spinning cube approached, he lifted his pickaxe and, at the last second, sent you flying. The impact kicked up a chunk of stone, right into the cube's path. The spinning monster crashed into it. For a brief moment, it lost balance, just enough for Ben to swing his pickaxe sideways. The blunt side of the weapon smashed into the cube, sending it flying into the wall. The moment it made contact, the monster shattered completely. The chamber fell silent again. Level 2 complete. The numbers flickered again. Level 3 0 out of 1600, 30. Ben groaned. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Just how many level is there? Probably 10, Elvira said, plopping onto the floor with a bored look. She wanted to fight, but she knew it was better to follow Ben's suggestion. The reason? Earning his trust. Mana wasn't a concern. She knew exactly how many white gemstones he had on him. As long as she had time, she could recover her mana indefinitely. How do you know that? Well, it's just a guess based on who made this ruin. She leaned back, resting her arms on her knees. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this is a caretaker ruin. The caretaker? A human organization from the Utopia era. I've read about them before. This kind of test is one of their trademarks, of course. There's a chance this ruin belonged to another faction or species, but I think that's unlikely. Caretaker? Was this some kind of preservation bunker? Ben remembered reading about something similar, an underground vault filled with every kind of seed in the world, alongside copies of literature, historical artifacts, and other preserved human knowledge. You have any idea what's inside? No clue. My clan didn't find it. The ones who did live far from here, we only get bits and pieces of information when they come to trade. She tilted her head. But from what they've told us, there are a lot of caretaker ruins in their territory. A lot of ruins? Ben frowned. Could it be somewhere like the North Pole? Humans in his world built vaults there because of the cold. It kept things frozen without using much energy. If these ruins were all clustered in one area, it could mean something. Maybe the climate here isn't too different from Earth's. At least, he hadn't transmigrated to some weird place like a flat planet. Or worse, a cube. But his ridiculous thought quickly stopped as the timer hit 0. 16 block monsters rained down. Ben wasn't going to wait. He burned biomass. 8 long legs burst out from his back. It looked like spider leg with very sharp tip. The moment they emerged, they shot forward like spears, skewering, slicing, tearing through 8 monsters instantly. Their shattered remains disintegrated, breaking apart into dust-like fragments, vanishing before they even hit the ground. The remaining 8 moved fast, firing spinning projectiles. Ben dodged, weaving between attacks. His legs struck like whips, cutting down another 2. One jumped at his back, his leg twisted unnaturally, stabbing straight through its core. The remaining 5 surrounded him. A cube lunged from the right, Ben's spider leg pierced straight through it, then used its body as a bludgeon to slam into 2 others. Shatter. The last 2 went for a synchronized attack. Ben dropped low, legs stabbing upward like a cage of blades. They died midair. The final block monster twitched, but it was changing. Its form bulged, shifting, its cube frame stretching into something different. Ben didn't bother to wait him to finish. The spider legs shoot forward, it tipped then expanded, turned into a massive mouth. Gulp. In one move the transforming block monster were devoured whole. The chamber went dead silent. Level 3 complete. The numbers flickered. Level 4 0 out of 2400, 30. Wow, you've gotten even stronger, my beloved, Elvira praised, watching Ben utilize his metamorphosis skill mid-fight. Before, he could only modify existing body parts, like turning his arm into an ant claw, but now he was creating entirely new limbs. Some kind of spider legs sprouted from his back, shifting and flexing with inhumane agility. She knew he had tried to make wings before, but those were barely usable, more like a malformed attempt rather than a proper feature. Yet, unlike Elvira, Ben wasn't pleased at all. The block monsters keep evolving. The last one even started shooting projectiles. His grip tightened as his confidence wavered. He had sworn to protect Elvira, to make sure she never needed to fight, but the battlefield was shifting. The last one also looked like it was about to evolve again. His expression darkened. Seems like I really have to do it here. With a reluctant sigh, he pulled out the creature creation screen. Consuming biomass and the white gemstone, Ben spawned 8 more Krell scouts, bringing their numbers to 10. His back split open as the spider legs merged, locking into place with a grotesque squelch. Elvira, be careful. They keep evolving, if some get past me. Don't worry, my beloved. I know what to do, Elvira replied, eyeing the 10 Krell scouts surrounding her. A small, amused smile played on her lips. With you protecting me from all sides like this, I doubt they could reach me, even with ranged attacks. Don't underestimate them. Ben's voice was tense. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the next one could merge together. After all, their bodies were made of blocks, it wouldn't be weird if they started stacking into something massive. Well, in that case, isn't it even better? Elvira tilted her head. If they become one big target, that just means you can focus all your attacks on it. Ben blinked, then let out a short breath. That's true, he admitted. But his gut told him otherwise. In this world, nothing was ever that simple. No matter how strong he had become, he knew better than to underestimate his enemies. Chapter 40, the boss. More monsters rained down toward Ben and Elvira, each level pushing their skills further, adding new attack patterns into the mix. At first, the box monsters could only shoot a single projectile, but now they fired 2 at once. Their speed and strength surged with every wave, and their numbers kept multiplying. Thankfully, with 10 Krell scouts at his command, Ben had no trouble cutting them down. He didn't even give them the chance to evolve. Between level S, he used the time to create gear for his Krell scouts. Initially, they fought with just their claws and bodies, but now they moved in coordinated groups. 4 were equipped with bows, 2 wielded swords and shields, another 2 carried spears, and the last 2 bore massive axes, clad in heavy armor. Their teamwork was impeccable, moving as a unit through their hive mind. Ben only had to issue a command, and they would execute it without hesitation. Unfortunately, their intelligence was only at the level of animals. If they were geniuses instead, how good would they be? How creative could they fight? The thought lingered in Ben's mind. Before, he figured giving them higher intelligence would just make them harder to control, a hassle rather than an advantage. But now, the idea of creating a high-intelligence Krell scout as an experiment felt oddly tempting. That's a problem for later. Right now, he had to clear these level S and get out of this dungeon. Level 9 complete. The numbers flickered. Level 10 0 out of 101, 00. Seeing the single enemy count, Ben frowned. Seems like we're really fighting a boss this time. Stay on your toes, Elvira. Don't worry, my beloved. I'm always ready. Elvira replied with a smile. But despite her confident words, her actions said otherwise. She was floating midair, lounging comfortably while reading a book. Around her, the 10 Krell scouts were recovering their wounds. Some had only minor scratches, while others had lost limbs. The majority of their armor was cracked, meaning he'd have to replace it soon. As Ben crafted new equipment through the system, he glanced at her. You sure about that? You're literally just lazing around right now. Hey, don't underestimate mages like me. Elvira pouted. We stay alert using mana, not our physical senses. Ben rolled his eyes. What are you even reading? He eyed the book in her hands. The title was in a language he couldn't decipher, just a brown leather cover with golden letters. A book on magic theory. I'm trying to find clues about our situation. Like those ugly square monsters you're fighting, how were they created? They're clearly not living beings. They seem to be made of pure mana, Ben replied as the newly crafted equipment materialized in front of him. I tried using consume on them. Even tried my pickaxe. If they had any biological matter or actual materials, I should have gotten something. The Krell scouts wasted no time replacing their broken gear. Elvira closed her book slightly, her eyes thoughtful. As I tough. Their magical construct. She then turned her gaze toward the vault. I hope we can get knowledge to create those inside the dungeon. Why? You don't have a similar method? Ben asked disinterestedly. With his creature creation system, he could already make any creature he wanted. A magical construct? Sure, it sounded cool, but it had no real value to him. I have a way to create golems, but that costs too many materials. Magical constructs are something entirely different, just like those monsters. Elvira glanced at him, noticing his uninterested expression. I know your ability is far superior to this. You have fewer limitations, you don't need to keep fueling them with mana. You basically create actual living beings. But magical constructs have their own advantages. Depending on the method, I might be able to manifest all my mana into a single beast. And with the right knowledge, who knows? I might even develop an entirely new type of magic. I see. Ben nodded. He still wasn't particularly interested, but understanding how their enemies worked was another matter. Any idea yet on how they function? Nope. Other than the core inside the monsters, which seems similar to a golem's, I don't have much. Elvira sighed. But that still doesn't explain how the mana actually manifests into their bodies. The core only fuels their energy and maybe their attack patterns, it doesn't shape them. How hard can that be? Isn't it just like creating something solid, like an earth wall? Elvira let out an exasperated huff, crossing her arms as she shot him an incredulous look. Of course, it's completely different. Without missing a beat, she launched a detailed explanation about how forming a living creature was infinitely more complex than shaping an earth wall. She threw around terms that went in one ear and out the other for Ben. He honestly didn't care. Obviously, making a living creature was more complicated than a wall, but to him, the basic concept felt the same. Hey. Are you even listening? Yeah, basically, they're more complicated, Ben replied lazily. Honestly, you should check out biology from my old world. That'd help you a lot more than me pretending to care. Before Elvira could reply, the countdown reached 0. A familiar symphony echoed through the dungeon. The block monsters stopped spinning, suddenly trembled, then, as if pulled by an unseen force, they shot toward a single point. The mass of blocks spiraled, twisting and shifting, stacking and locking together. A massive form took shape, pieces clicking into place like some kind of cursed, living Tetris nightmare. A towering mass of interlocking cubes, its body pulsed with shifting segments, almost like a living structure rewriting itself in real time. Its face was an eerie grin, with blocky jaws that twisted into a wicked, ever-changing expression. A core of raw energy pulsed within its chest, crackling with unstable mana. 6 long, monstrous tendrils stretched from its back, snapping like whips, each one ending in a shifting, deformed head, their hollow eyes scanning hungrily for prey. Chapter 41, second phase. As it moved, its body glitched, sections of its form warping as if struggling to maintain a stable shape, pieces phasing in and out of existence. Then, it stabilized. The distortion vanished in an instant, as if the monster had forced itself into reality. Roar. The sound that erupted from it wasn't just a roar, it was wrong. Distorted, glitching like a corrupted audio file. It lifted its massive arms high, then slammed them down with a thunderous crash. The impact sent cracks spider-webbing through the stone beneath them, a shockwave blasting outward with a deafening boom. Ben exhaled sharply, his eyes narrowing as he took in the abomination before them. Of course, they can fuse. And again with his familiar tune. He immediately sent orders to the Krell scouts. With only one enemy left, he could fully focus on controlling his creatures. His mind shifted into strategy mode. Defensive formation. Don't engage yet? The Krell scouts responded instantly, spreading out in a semicircle, awaiting his command. The creature moved. The ground beneath them shifted, mana rippled. Ben barely had time to react before the metallic floor erupted, jagged blocky spikes tearing through the dungeon like a terrain manipulation attack. Elvira shot upward, avoiding the attack with a quick rise in altitude, her sharp gaze locked onto the creature. Move, now. The Krell scouts scattered just as the spikes shot up where they had been standing moments before. Ben's eyes locked onto the creature's chest, its core had flared right before the attack. So it needs to charge before using that. Good. But there was no time to celebrate. The creature glitched forward, skipping frames like a corrupted game sprite, suddenly appearing right in front of one of the bow scouts. Dodge. But Ben order come too late. A massive arm slammed down, the impact launching the Krell scout across the battlefield like a ragdoll. The dungeon floor cracked under the sheer force. Ben gritted his teeth. It's fast. 3 types of attacks so far, spikes, heavy slams, and that glitch charge. But no time to think about that now. Then came the tendrils, 6 of them, each shifting and morphing into a different weapon. A chainsaw. A hammer-like mass. A spiked whip. Each moved independently, slicing through the air at random angles. Ben cursed under his breath. Shields up. Ugsman, hold position. Archers, target its eyes. The scouts moved like a well-oiled machine. Shield bearers dug in, bracing for impact. The spearmen stayed just outside reach, striking only the moment the whip clashed against the shields. The Ugsman held steady, waiting for their moment. Bam. 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 The creature's grin twitched, like it was amused. Then, its core pulsed. Ben's eyes narrowed. Another spike attack, jump. The scouts leaped just as another set of spikes erupted from the ground. Two weren't fast enough, they got hit midair and sent sprawling, but the others landed safely. Ben wasn't done. If it follows patterns, that means the creature glitched again, skipping frames as it teleported mid-slam toward the downed scouts. Exactly what I expected. Shields. Intercept. The two shield bearers surged forward, slamming into the creature mid-motion, cutting off its attack. The impact sent it staggering, its body flickering wildly, as if momentarily losing its grip on reality. Spears. Pin the limbs. Now. The spearmen dashed in, striking fast, driving their weapons into the writhing tendrils before they could lash out. The creature screeched, its attacks disrupted, its shifting form glitching under the coordinated strike. Ben's smirk widened. Ugsman, crack that core. The two armored scouts lunged, their heavy axes swinging in brutal unison. The weapons crashed into the creature's chest, shattering interlocking blocks. A visible fracture spread around its core. The creature screamed. Its body convulsed, glitching so violently that even the air around it seemed to distort, reality itself rejecting its existence. But it wasn't done. The creature reared back. Its core pulsed, harder, faster, radiating a terrifying intensity. The cracks in its form twisted, shifting, rewriting themselves like corrupted code, repairing the damage in real time. At the same time, the six tendrils shot outward, far beyond their original reach. Ben's mind raced. It's entering a second phase. He quickly gave out order, fall back. Shields, cover the retreat. As if to mock him, the familiar tune play out once again, and then the pace start fasten like it got a remix into a boss game soundtrack. Ben start feeling the urge to curse. He start wondering, is this a test? Or just some kind of game that the owner of the ruin created for their amusement? The six tendrils suddenly pulled back, twisting and expanding as they engulfed the creature. It looked like a flower closing, except there was nothing beautiful about it. More like a grotesque, shifting egg of flesh and distortion. Elvira, any idea what it's doing? Ben's instincts screamed at him to attack. But at the same time, another part of him warned, don't. That conflicting feeling made him hesitate. If this was some kind of phase transformation, attacking blindly might trigger something worse. Elvira's voice was steady, but her eyes narrowed as she observed the shifting mana. It's strange. That creature doesn't feel like a single entity. It's like many creatures moving at once. If I understood it better, I might be able to disperse it. Ben's eyes sharpened. Does it have a weak link? Elvira's gaze stayed locked on the creatures. Before? Yes. Now? I don't see any. His lips twitched. You could have told me that earlier, you know. She glanced at him, unfazed. Well, you told me not to intervene. Besides, you already hit one of its weak spots anyway. Ben frowned. Wait, you're saying it had another weak point besides the core? Elvira gave a small nod, her expression thoughtful. Yes. One of its tendrils. The one that barely moved to attack you. Ben's mind raced, replaying the fight. The six tendrils had been a nuisance, annoying, but not all of them were threats. And now that he thought about it, the hammer-like tendril barely did anything the entire fight. Damn it. I got played. His jaw clenched. Next time, tell me. You know my mana sensitivity is very bad. Elvira chuckled softly. All right, my beloved. But just as quickly, her expression hardened. It's coming.